Chapter 3040. He was merely stalling for time. Stalling for time? Duan Yu abruptly looked up and met Mo Lian's eyes. Eldest brother-in-law, hurry up. Jojo is definitely in trouble. Mo Lian naturally thought of this as well. This person did everything possible to stop them here, so he must be targeting Jojo. Mu Xingqian also wanted this spirit tool to hurry up, but unfortunately, this spirit tool wasn't very useful. Duan Yu glared at Mo Lian. A divine weapon master doesn't even have a spirit tool that can quickly enter the water? Prince Mo really wanted to spit on his face. After holding in for a while, he squeezed out a word. Poor. Poor? Poor my ass. From Duan Yu's understanding of this person, it must be that this punk looked down on ordinary materials and would only think of making something when he obtained the best materials. Perhaps it was because he was lazy. Moreover, with his status, he simply didn't need to be like a normal spiritual weapon master who had to make some spirit tools to sell for money in his spare time. He simply didn't need to. Can you forge it faster? Duan Yu grumpily asked. How can that be possible? There's not enough time to forge it on the spot. Mu Xingqian shook his head and was about to reject Duan Yu's outlandish and rude request on behalf of his brother-in-law. However, Mo Lian nodded. All right. Mu Xingqian was flabbergasted. Sir Jojo swiftly returned to Little Li Village and ran along the original path towards a river. How terrifying. Why did she seem to sense that person's aura slowly approaching? Sir Jojo quickly slapped an invisibility talisman on himself and rummaged through his small bag as he ran. Paradise Planet couldn't be used right now, and his divine conscience was locked by the Omega Kitoku, so he couldn't open his inner world at all. Thankfully, ever since he was tricked by the Academy's teachers, Sir Jojo liked to carry a small bag with him whenever he went out. Inside were plenty of emergency talismans and life-saving pills. She ate and ran as fast as she could. In a flash, Sir Jojo rapidly returned to the entrance of Little Li Village and quickly ran along the original path towards the river. Damn, it was almost too late. She could almost feel that person's aura had already extended into the village. So fast. She chewed on a pill in her small mouth and rummaged through her bag. She remembered that 2 days ago, when the 9th Jade Talisman of the Golden Talisman Jade Tome opened, an Earth-level demonstration talisman with spirituality floated down. She had probably stuffed it into her bag as a backup. Hurry up and search. Search got it. Ever since Arbor opened the 9th talisman of the Golden Talisman Jade Tome, he hadn't had the time to study it properly. She had only looked at this demonstration talisman a few times and had never drawn it. After memorizing it a few times, Jojo made up his mind and slapped the talisman onto himself. Qin Xian's figure instantly appeared at the entrance of Little Li Village. She looked around, and her cold gaze swept across the few pedestrians at the entrance of the village. He could clearly feel Jojo's aura just now. How did he disappear in an instant? Xian, the little girl can't have run too far. Ling chased after her all the way. He stopped in his tracks and blinked. Why has his aura disappeared? Qin Xian turned her head and glared fiercely at him. I swear, I didn't do it on purpose. Ling raised 3 fingers above his head and swore solemnly. Who knew that the little guy would be so cunning? He actually didn't hesitate to hurt himself and run away. Shut up. Qin Xian interrupted him in annoyance. Look around. Chapter 3041. All right. A few of them split up and searched in all directions. Ling chased in the direction of the river. He brushed past a 5 or 6-year-old child. She paused and turned back to look at the dirty child with a hand full of mud. Then, she quickly left. The little boy was wrapped in a very old and tattered jacket. He was squatting by the roots of a tree and playing with the mud. After Feather had run far away, he raised his head slightly and looked in the direction she had left with a lightning-like gaze. Then, he retracted his gaze and patted the shabby clothes on his body. It would have been better if he didn't pat it. Now that he patted it, it was so dusty that the child coughed twice and quickly covered his mouth with a small hand. Damn it! Master Jojo gloomily straightened his small body and staggered a few steps forward. This very spiritual, Earth-level demonstration talisman was called the Transformation Talisman. As the name suggested, After buying this talisman, one's appearance would change accordingly. Master Jojo only had this one transformation talisman. Naturally, she didn't know what kind of change it would cause. She thought that she could turn into a small animal or something. However, it turned out that the extent of this transformation was only from a 16-year-old girl to a 5 or 6-year-old child. The transformation time was more than 7 days. Speaking of which, it was quite tricky. Right now, she was just an ordinary farmer's child. Naturally, she had to pretend to be more realistic. There was no need for him to walk as if he was flying. The little girl waddled forward for a short distance. Sure enough, she saw Ling turn back and look at her with a deep gaze. Hee, don't think that Master Jojo is a fool. He doesn't know that you are hiding in the dark to watch the real person. She had picked up this dirty and tattered cotton-padded jacket from someone's drying rack. It fit her perfectly. Her disguise was so perfect that Ling, who had only seen her once or twice in his life, would definitely not be able to recognize her. Even if her parents were standing in front of her, they might not be able to recognize her. You want to recognize Lord Xiao Xiao's identity with your bear-like appearance? Puffed. Ling secretly laughed at his own suspicions. Then, he turned and searched in the direction of the river. Arbor heaved a sigh of relief, but his slender eyebrows furrowed. With Ling's interference, she couldn't even sneak to Du Chuanjiang's side. Forget it. I'll find a safe place to stay first. Omega Katoku and his men searched the vicinity of the village. When they reunited, there was a hint of hesitation in their eyes. She can't run that fast. Could he have jumped into the river again? The short and fat man asked as he swung his purple golden hammer. This little girl had a fiery temper. Rather than being caught by them, she might as well jump into the river herself. There's no sign of her at all by the river. Ling Yao cast a seductive glance at the short and fat winter melon. The short winter melon immediately quivered and shut his mouth. Did you see anyone along the way? Speaking of which, I didn't see many people. You guys saw it just now. Under that tree, there was a little brat playing with mud. Ling suddenly stopped talking and looked at Omega Kitoku in astonishment. That's not right. When we use our divine sense to lock this area, it seemed that there was no sign of this brat. Let's go and find her. Omega Kitoku reacted and led his men back to the village. How many times could a group of adults be deceived by a little girl who was neither too young nor too young? Chapter 3043. She had already disguised herself in such a ghastly appearance. So how could someone still see through her at a glance? It was completely illogical. Last time, she also thought that her disguise was perfect. In the end, let alone Mo Lin and Duan Yu, even senior brother Sidhu, could recognize her and greet her. Why the heck was this? This disguise was even more perfect than last time. What did this petite body look like? Her face was also smeared beyond recognition. What was going on? Sir Jojo was perplexed no matter how hard he racked his brains. His pair of pitch-black, watery eyes stared fixedly at Omega Kitoku for a long while. What exactly do you want? His words were tantamount to admitting his identity. On the other hand, Ling was grinning without saying anything, but the short and fat winter gourd who was wielding the purple gold hammer almost dropped it to the ground. His eyes widened as he sized up Arbor from head to toe. Fuck, wasn't this little fellow's disguise too different? The second young master was truly impressive to be able to recognize her in this state. Arbor glanced at him impatiently. Because of your nonsense, we're even going to miss the time to go to the mystic realm. I just want to have a good chat with you. I have nothing to do with you. Second young Master Qin arrived in front of her with a flash and tapped her sallow forehead with a finger. We can talk, I promise. Arbor expressionlessly looked at him and asked after a long pause, "How did you recognize me?" Ling couldn't resist sniggering. She then called out coquettishly, Little miss, you couldn't have been recognized like this before, right? Just when you think your disguise is perfect, you'll be slapped in the face and recognized at any moment." The little girl expressionlessly looked at her. Nonsense. Ling couldn't resist guffawing. Shin, this little miss is quite interesting. Arbor couldn't be bothered with them and turned around to face Sir Omega Kitoku with the back of his head. This lord is tired and can't be bothered to play a game of cat and mouse with you guys. The second young master reached out and picked her up. The little girl suddenly felt that she was a distance away from the ground. Her almond eyes stared at him, full of dissatisfaction. She roared, "What are you doing? Your legs are short and you walk slowly. We still have to hurry on with our journey. Carrying you will speed up our journey." The second young master said indifferently. Arbor's mind was filled with the words, "You have short legs, short legs, short legs, short legs." On the second young master's face, you couldn't see any charming expression. It was definitely the face of a gentleman. "Your legs are short. This young master will help you." Ha. Ling's unbridled laughter filled the entire village. She lowered her head to look at his legs and chuckled expressionlessly. "Let me ask you, if I don't walk out by myself, what are you going to do?" Arbor asked indifferently as he looked at the second young master who was only an inch away from him with a pair of cold eyes. "Don't you know? Beast!" Sir Jojo cursed in his heart. He stretched out his little hand and said impatiently, "Give it to me." The second young master glanced at her and placed the storage talisman that he snatched away earlier on in her palm. Shin, you and a little miss have such chemistry." Chemistry my ass," Sir Omega Kitoku and Sir Jojo said at the same time. However, the words they said were naturally different. "Little miss, why are you so fierce to Shin? He's a very nice person." Ling blinked. Chapter 3044. The little girl naturally responded with an expressionless chuckle. In Ling's eyes, anyone could be considered a good person. A pervert like Omega Kitoku was actually a good person in her eyes. Jojo couldn't understand. However, the little fellow didn't know that her signature expressionless chuckle was simply adorable. "You have to swear that you won't touch a single blade of grass or tree here," Arbor said coldly. Shin Exine lowered her head to look at her and nodded without saying a word. Finally, after Zither Gongzi finished writing the oath, Lord Jojo put the oath away and looked at him expressionlessly. Jojo's heart softened. Second Gongzi reached out and patted her little head. Arbor snorted and tilted her head to avoid his hand. "Don't be so careless." Ling almost laughed out loud. His eyes wandered around her body playfully. "With your small body, it's impossible for anyone to have the thought of being careless." Jojo turned her head and tightly pursed her little mouth. She didn't say anything. "Jojo can't even be bothered to talk to you." Speaking of which, although this village was small, there were still hundreds of families. If they were all buried in Shin Exine's hands, it would naturally be a great injustice. The main thing was, why should she bear the infamy of being the main culprit? Most people were extremely ignorant. When the time came, she would definitely be accused of being a femme fatale. One person would spread to 10, and 10 would spread to 100. Who knew what would happen in the end? When that time came, it wouldn't just be rumors of her being arrogant and despotic in the small imperial capital. She would be able to stop them at any time. Although she didn't care that much about her reputation, who would want to be secretly cursed behind her back wherever she went. It was better to put an end to these troublesome matters as soon as possible. "Jojo." Second Gongzi reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair on her cheek behind her ear. "You must think that it wouldn't be difficult to trick me into writing the oath and then escape, right?" Arbor looked ahead expressionlessly. She couldn't be bothered to look at his face. "You don't have a chance." Jojo, Sama was furious. She was indeed harboring such thoughts, but she had long predicted that her actions would be seen through. But don't say out loud. It really made Jojo angry. "You think you're the smart one? You think you're the only one who knows how to cause trouble? Can you stop threatening me with those random people I don't even know?" "Okay, I won't do it again." Mr. Omega Kitoku's voice was gentle. For a moment, Arbor thought he was hallucinating. What? He said okay? He actually agreed? Shouldn't he have said, "Stop dreaming. If you dare to run away again, I'll find a random city and use the lives of all the people in the city to threaten you"? Jojo chuckled. "I won't lie to you," Shin Exine said softly. "As long as you don't act like a hedgehog when you see me and talk to me about everything, I'll do anything for you in the future, okay? Oomph. Don't think that I don't know that you're trying to coax me like you're coaxing a pet. I don't believe you. Xiao Mu's beady black eyes swiveled around. My lotus is about to catch up. Oomph. Mr. Omega Kotoko couldn't help but sneer. Not so fast. Once my Ren is here, you're dead. Jojo, Sama said expressionlessly. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Wait for me to get help. Mr. Omega Kotoko suddenly moved closer to her. His jade-like handsome face gradually enlarged in front of her. Chapter 3045. Sir Jojo instantly shut up and retreated vigilantly. This scoundrel actually dared to come so close. Did he want to die? The little fellow glared with her pitch-black eyes and angrily said, What are you doing? What are you doing? If you keep blabbering on and on, I'll use my own method to shut you up. Arbor! Exclamation point. No one had ever dared to be so impudent to this darling. Jojo, the little emperor, was blabbering on and on. This fellow really wanted to die. The little emperor glared at him a couple of times, glaring back. Then he retracted his gaze and turned his little head away. They quickly left the village and headed in the direction of the Red River Canyon. On the other hand, Arbor was rather taken aback and felt a bit strange. It seemed that this Omega Kotoko was still heading in the direction of the shrine, but if he wanted to forcefully take her away, shouldn't he have found a better route? Since they were heading in the direction of the Red River Canyon, then Prince Mo and the others would catch up sooner or later. She didn't know where her Lien went, nor did she know what Sapling and the others were up to. It didn't look like it was because the spirit realm was advancing, so why couldn't she contact Sapling no matter what she did? Don't worry, Mo Lien and Duan, you won't catch up that quickly. Don't worry my ass, Arbor grumpily thought. Because flying was prohibited, Omega Kotoko and the others could only use their divine power to increase their speed. They arrived at the entrance of the Red River Canyon in the evening. Arbor strongly requested a certain someone to put her down and climbed up a boulder that was half the height of a person. Looking down from here, they could see a deep V-shaped valley that stretched far ahead with no end in sight. The crimson rock walls were tall and dangerous, with ancient vines winding around them. They could see the afterglow of the setting sun shining at the end of the narrow path in the distance. They were standing on higher ground. If they wanted to pass through the Red River Canyon, they first had to descend from the top of this cliff. In the past, floating in the air was no problem at all, but now Jojo, Sama looked at Omega Kotoko with an expressionless face. Where's the temple? It's said to be at the end of the Red River Canyon. Second young master lowered his head to look at her and asked gently, Jojo, aren't you going to change back? With your short stature, it's not convenient for you to go down. Do you think I'm a monster? Could he transform just like that? Arbor had a cold expression that said, I don't understand what you're talking about. He turned his head and a vine drilled out of his wrist and climbed along the rock wall. I'll go first. Everyone was speechless. With your small arms and legs, by the time you reach the bottom of the cliff, the sky will probably be dark and bright again. Mr. Jojo glanced at them. Before he could take a step forward, his arm was grabbed by the second young master. Don't mess around. Chin Exine looked at her helplessly. I'll carry you. Get lost. Was he, Jojo, a loser who needed someone to carry him? Ling looked at him, overjoyed. How about Big Sister carries you? Jojo, Sama looked down at his small arms and legs and nodded reluctantly. All right then. Seeing that you're a girl, I'll tolerate it. Ling smiled and winked at Chin Exine. Seeing that he looked like he was about to explode, she hurriedly said, Exine, don't worry. This time, I'll take good care of the little girl. I won't let her slip from my hands again. Chin Exine glanced at her indifferently. No need. Chapter 3046. The little girl jumped onto Feather's back and lay there, looking at the second young master warily. Although she had shrunk, there was nothing awkward about being with Chin Exine. However, from an emotional point of view, she was still unwilling to have any further contact with him. Being able to endure the intimacy of touching her head was already Lord Jojo's limit. The young master of Omega Kotoko looked at her helplessly and nodded. All right then. Do you think you can still object? Arbor glanced at him and pulled Feather's hair. Let's go. Feather immediately called out seductively. Hey, don't pull my hair. Who pulled your hair? The little girl's hand froze. Then she snorted and retracted her hand. Jojo, don't tell me you waited for me to climb halfway and then retracted the vines and let me fall. Feather carried the little girl and jumped off the cliff, grabbing the green vines released by Arbor with one hand. The little girl said expressionlessly, Do you think I'm as despicable as you, a few shameless old monsters ganging up to capture a child? This child's words were really infuriating, Feather thought bitterly. Adults bullying children, old men bullying babies, men bullying women, despicable. Sir Jojo snorted and turned his head to look into the distance. This area was filled with copper-colored cliffs, and at first glance, it was magnificent and magnificent, especially now that she was on the cliff, looking at the narrow valley in the distance. The mountains on both sides were majestic and grand, and it looked as if a sword had broken through the path below, outlining a deep valley between heaven and earth, stretching all the way to the front. She couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. She felt that the world was so big and human strength was so insignificant. What is Jojo thinking about? Let go of my divine sense. Arbor said impatiently. I want to go to the inner world to find something to eat. Hungry. Feather chuckled. With a wave of his hand, he took out a carrot from his inner world and handed it to the little girl. Arbor. She impolitely extended her fist and punched her on the head. This old monster was actually feeding her with carrots? Was Jojo a rabbit? Even a rabbit could bite when it was anxious. Violence, Ling muttered. As he spoke, he had already climbed down the cliff. As soon as her feet touched the ground, she felt the weight on her back lighten. Turning her head, she saw the Omega Katoku hurriedly reach out and pull the little girl down from her back, carrying her to the side. Let go. The little fellow stomped its short legs and roared in annoyance. Impudent fellow, you actually dare to grab Lord Xiao Xiao. Who gave you the guts? Second young master put her down and stroked her little head. It's already late. Let's go to the cave abode ahead to rest for the night. We'll leave when the sun rises. Arbor looked at him in confusion. What a strange fellow. He actually dared to stop. Was he waiting for her lotus? Don't worry. With Emollien's IQ, it will take at least a day and a half for them to get here. She wanted to slap him. Arbor said angrily with a cold face. What exactly did you do? Do you want to know? Omega Katoku lowered his head and glanced at her. He waved his hand and said, Come with me. It wasn't that she really wanted to follow him. It was just that after a day of being in the water, jumping off a cliff and running for so long, Xiao Mu also looked a little tired. Since Omega Katoku said that he wanted to rest for the night, then so be it. Chapter 3047. I'll let her rest for the night and find a chance to escape tomorrow. With that thought in mind, Lady Xiao Xiao walked into a cave near the cliff. Wait a minute. Second young Master Qin lifted her up, causing a certain someone to fly up and kick him in anger. There was now another footprint on her light-colored robe. Second Sir didn't take it to heart. He turned his head and nodded to a tall and thin man beside him. That person immediately understood and stepped into the cave. Soon, they heard the hissing and roaring of snakes. After a series of swift and decisive actions, that tall and thin man stepped out of the cave and cupped his hands towards Sir Omega Katoku. You can go in now, sir. Arbor kicked him. Put me down. Don't be noisy. Aren't you tired? Second Sir carried her into the cave and frowned slightly. Ayaya, there's a bloody smell. Ling took out a bottle from his sleeve and sprinkled it here and there. After a while, the bloody smell faded and a faint fragrance wafted out of the cave. The fragrance powder from the fragrance shop has pretty good ability to remove the smell. Ling put away the things complacently. When he turned around and saw the little girl's disdainful expression, he couldn't help but be stunned. What's wrong? It stinks. She felt nauseous and wanted to vomit when she smelled the inferior fragrance powder. As she spoke, she really stomped her feet and ran out to vomit. Ling had a blank look on his face as he sniffed around. He sniffed around and sniffed around. Where's the stench? Isn't it very fragrant? Hey, Little fellow, the fragrance powder from the fragrance shop is very expensive. Just this small bottle of fragrance powder costs 500 spirit coins. Arbor vomited for a while. When she turned around, her face was slightly pale. It was obvious that she wasn't faking it. How are you? Second Sir looked at her worriedly and turned to glare at Ling. Go get rid of that smell. Ling looked wronged and said pitifully, how do I get rid of it? Go get some hay to clean up the smell. Oh. Ling pulled the tall and skinny man out of the cave. Not long after, he chopped a bundle of tree branches and brought them in. After burning for a while, Lady Qiao Qiao walked back into the cave with a look of disgust on her face. She took out a medicinal herb from the small bag she carried with her, crushed it, and sprinkled the medicinal powder all over the walls. Only then did she feel much better. Expensive doesn't mean good. Mr. Jojo looked at Ling with disdain. What kind of good spices can be sold in that shop? Her incense-making skills are really not that good. It was hard to imagine that there would be a group of people in the capital following him. It was simply hilarious. Ling blinked. Little girl, do you have any good spices to sell? All right, you're an alchemist, so you must know a lot of ways to beautify your skin. Tell me about them. You're an old monster. You're already so old, yet you're still thinking about beautifying yourself. You're simply shameless. Arbor looked at her expressionlessly. Do you want a special beautifying cream? It improves the quality of the skin and nourishes the skin. It's most suitable for people who are always on the move outside, exposed to the wind, sun, and rain. Yes, yes, yes. Ling's eyes suddenly brightened, and she nodded repeatedly. 1,000,000 spirit coins for a bottle. Everyone's lips twitched as they subconsciously glanced at the second young master. Omega Katoku was baffled. It wasn't like this little girl had been selling things for a day or two. Why was she looking at him? Chapter 3048. It's so expensive. Can it be cheaper? Ling blinked and asked with a pained expression. Shameless. You want to cheat me of my money. You're an old monster who has lived for hundreds of years. How can you lack money? Ha, don't be funny. 990,000 is the lowest price, Arbor said expressionlessly. You just said that expensive doesn't necessarily mean good. It's different if it's expensive. I definitely have my own reasons for being expensive. Arbor interrupted him coldly. Are you buying it or not? I only have one bottle. Bye. Ling felt pained as he took out the money. Can you give me something extra? The short and fat man's eyebrows and mouth twitched. Looking at the scene in front of him, he felt indescribably strange. Does this kid have any self-awareness as a hostage? He's actually peddling business among us. Forget it. You're so long-winded. Since you carried me all the way here, I'll give you a 3-day beautifying pill. What does a 3-day beautifying pill mean? Arbor looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. It means that you can try it for 3 days. Once you take this beautifying pill, you can feel the unique beautifying effect for 3 days. After 3 days, you'll return to your original appearance. You could buy a permanent beautifying pill for 2,000,000 spirit coins. Everyone was speechless. You're not only evil, but you're also good at doing business. A 3-day trial period? You're obviously setting a trap for Ling, who loves to show off, to jump into it. Okay, I'll try. Ling nodded and reluctantly took out money to buy a bottle of beautifying cream and a beautifying pill for a 3-day trial. If you use it well, you can introduce it to your old sisters. Arbor said expressionlessly. Our shop is near Huachi Street in the south of the city. It's called Heavenly Pill House. You can go there and take a look when you have time. This time, even Ling couldn't help but twitch his mouth and look at Arbor, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What the hell is an old sister? Okay, let's go to sleep. Arbor was exhausted after a long day. He stretched out his small hand in front of the Omega Katoku. Betting. This group of people had sealed her divine sense and prevented her from using her inner world. Apart from the few things she could use in her small pouch, she couldn't take out anything else. Aren't you hungry? Mr. Omega Katoku raised his hand and patted her head. Let's eat first. Sir Jojo originally wanted to reject this fellow, but after thinking about it, he realized that he would only have the strength to run if he was full. Thus, with a stoic expression, He stomped over to the fire and sat down. Apart from young Master Omega Kitoku and Ling, the other 4 God State warriors were the short and fat man, Fei Zhuang, the tall and thin man, and the twin brothers Tang Quan and Tang Li. Among them, the fat guy who was at the 7th level of the God Realm had the highest cultivation. At this time, the 2 brothers, Tang Quan and Tang Li, were sitting in front of the fire, busily roasting 2 wild game. The fat guy had pulled out the tendons and skinned the snake that had been entrenched in the cave before, planning to make snake stew or something for everyone. Arbor was a bit disdainful, but when the snake stew was served, the aroma was very tempting. She took the small bowl that the fat guy handed over and drank 2 mouthfuls. She realized that this person's cooking was really good. As a result, Xiao Xiao's tensed brows relaxed a little after eating the meal. Ling secretly winked at young Master Omega Kitoku, using his eyes to signal to him. Can you tell? This is a little foodie. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Sir Jojo carried his bedding to the dry haystack in the corner of the wall. He lay down and rolled around in the bedding. Too lazy to pay attention to anyone, he simply went to sleep. Chapter 3049. In the middle of the night, Sir Jojo rubbed his eyes in a daze, sat up, and walked out of the cave with his short legs. Under the pitch-black night sky, only a faint ray of moonlight shone on the person outside the cave. Xiao Mu's footsteps paused, and she expressionlessly walked past him. She ran a bit further, and after she finished relieving herself, she walked past him again with a wooden expression. Xiao Xiao. Second young master sighed faintly. I remember everything now. Xiao Mu's body stiffened in fright from his sudden words, and her hair stood on end as she looked at him warily. The young master of Omega Kitoku waved at her. Seeing that she was still 18 steps away from him and didn't want to come over at all, he walked to her side, pulled her hand, and sat down on a stone stool. Do you remember too? Sir Jojo had a strange expression that said, I don't understand what you're talking about. She sized him up from head to toe. I remember everything about you. Although some of my memories are still blurry, I can piece together a lot of information when I string them together. Stop pretending. He glanced at her. You recognized me the moment you saw me at the entrance of Seacone Planet's Chin estate. Jojo looked at him coldly. After a while, he squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. Nonsense. Is it really nonsense? He flipped his hand, and a small person dressed in bright red walked around in his palm. Although the figure was very faint, the facial features were especially clear. Arbor had goosebumps all over when she saw it, and she almost jumped up from the stone stool. She reached out to grab the figure. What is this? This is half of your soul. Has your soul been very unstable ever since you reincarnated? That's because your soul self-destructed in your previous life. Arbor's pupils contracted. She was dazed for a while before she couldn't help but ask, How did you know? This is just my deduction and guess. Actually, my memories of this period are also very vague. Omega Kitoku stared at her intently, his fingers twitching slightly. Finally, he couldn't help but rub her temples. Jojo, you're back. Shouldn't we let bygones be bygones? Think about how grateful you were to me when I carried you out of the tunnel. If it wasn't for that woman from the Sure family, we would have been married, and even why are there so many ifs? Arbor reached out to grab the wisp of soul in his palm. There are no ifs. There will never be ifs. She thought that Chin Xian wouldn't give it to her so easily, but unexpectedly, he didn't stop her. Instead, he silently watched her take back the broken shadow soul body. With such a bad personality, you deserve to be single your whole life. Jojo snorted. How many other soul remembrance like this do I have outside? Chin Xian couldn't help but laugh. This is your soul remembrance. You should know best. But she didn't remember anything? Lord Jojo glanced at him unhappily, thinking, how could he not know about it? She subconsciously pulled out the crescent-shaped jade pendant hanging around her neck. Ever since her master gave her this soul-calming chill jade, her soul had been much more stable. Chapter 3050. Was it because she had self-detonated her soul before? But she really couldn't remember anything. Jojo, Omega Katoka looked down at her and said softly, "No matter what happened in the past, at least for now, I want to get along with you. Can't we start from the beginning?" Start from the beginning? Arbor's gaze wavered slightly, and he thought, it's easy to start from the beginning, but many things can never return to the way they were in the beginning. Firstly, the mood is completely different, and secondly, the people I see, hear, and meet are also completely different. This is the so-called, things remain the same, but people change. Oh, oh, oh. Suddenly, a burst of ghostly wails and howls came from all directions. Xiaomu looked up and saw men and women dressed in native attire sliding down the mountain wall one after another like agile monkeys. They held weapons in their hands as they yelled crazily. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were surrounded in the middle. Sir Jojo looked at these monkey-like natives expressionlessly and didn't say anything. She was just a child at the moment, and if anything happened, the adults would take the blame. Qin Xin frowned. This area should be the territory of the Red River tribe, but looking at the attire of these natives, they clearly looked like aliens and weren't from the Red River tribe. Oh, oh, oh. Hundreds of natives surrounded the two of them, and the commotion was so big that it drew Ling and the others out of the cave. If you don't want to die, scram, Qin Xin said coldly. Xiao Mu was at a loss for words as those natives waved their hands and feet in front of them. Who are you people? Ling touched his handsome little face and shouted angrily, "Why did you come to disturb my sleep in the middle of the night?" Oh, wow, wow, oh. A woman who looked like the leader of the natives revealed her black belly and held a cane in her hand. The moment she raised it high, all the voices disappeared in succession. The woman who looked like the leader pondered for a while and suddenly said word by word in stiff imperial capital language, "This mountain is mine. This tree was planted by me." The corners of Ling's mouth twitched. His head was shrouded in black fog. He raised his eyes and glanced at the second young master's darkened face through the crowd. At this moment, the native female leader had already read out the words "leave" behind the toll. Suddenly, in the middle of the crowd, in the void, a circular vortex suddenly appeared, as if an endless stream of air was being sucked into it. The few natives were caught off guard for a moment. Their faces were slightly pale as they stabilized their bodies. They were almost pulled over by the airflow. The Aborigine leader was shocked and quickly knelt down with his clansmen. As he cowed out, he muttered some words that no one could understand. In the void vortex, a long strand of black hair suddenly brushed out, followed by a slender hand that reached out and grabbed the edge of the void, pulling it slightly to the left and right. Half of her body peeked out from the hole. Under the night sky, there was a hint of coldness and seduction. Prince Mo's cold gaze fell on everyone present. His pair of cold eyes stared coldly at Qin Xin. "So it's you who is playing tricks." Although the young master of Omega Katoka didn't show it on his face, he was very shocked on the inside. Not for anything else, but Mo Yin's method of tearing open the void and suddenly appearing was really shocking. Chapter 3051. Prince Mo leaped out of the tear in the void. This was clearly a bit frightening. For a moment, everyone was caught off guard and did not react. They stared at him in a daze. Lady Xiao's eyes lit up slightly. She stretched out two small hands eagerly, but then she lowered her head and looked at herself in distress. He was so small, and his body was like a little bean sprout. Mo Yin appeared in front of Sir Jojo in a flash. She reached out and picked him up. Her eyes were full of confusion. "Jojo, how did they do this to you?" This was not caused by anyone else. It was Lady Xiao who had dug a hole for herself and willingly jumped into it. What would Sir Jojo tell him? No. Bang! A strange-looking spiritual weapon that looked like a big-headed carp flew out of the tear in the void and landed on the ground with two thuds. Soon, a white figure flashed out of it. His body swayed a little, and then he stood aside with narrowed eyes. Then, Mu Xingqian used his speed to escape from the big carp spirit weapon. He rushed to the side of a tree, leaned against the tree, and started vomiting. "Big brother, what's wrong?" Sir Jojo looked at Mo Yin in confusion. "It's nothing. He's probably dizzy and wants to vomit." Mo Lien touched his little face and looked at him worriedly. Jojo, wait for me here. She then put the little guy down and looked coldly at the people from Omega Kitoku. A bundle of black fire instantly lit up in his hand, and Mo Lien arrived beside Second Sheen and the others in the blink of an eye, making a move without saying a word. At this time, Second Sheen had already recovered from his slight shock, and he looked at him with a rather grave expression as he asked, "You comprehended the power of nothingness for the other 3 special powers outside of the 5 spirits?" He tore open the void and rushed over. No one could imagine how he did it. The power of nothingness had disappeared for nearly 1,000 years. The talent of the Crown Prince of the Divine Land was simply demonic. Catch my Jojo? You sealed her divine sense, didn't you? Emolien couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on him, and with a thought, a silver longsword jumped out of his hand. You were the one who set up the trapping formation in the Du Chunjiang to stop us, right? Emolien narrowed her eyes and said coldly, "Explode." Boom! The self-destruction of a spiritual weapon was already unstoppable, let alone a divine weapon. On the side, Ling's expression shifted slightly. Just as he wanted to charge over, he was blocked by Duan Yu, who flashed forward. The young man was dressed in white and looked elegant and handsome. He blinked his peach blossom eyes and said to her with a smile that was not a smile, "You want to gang up on me? Your opponent is me. You think you can stop me?" Ling was still grinning. With a twist of his finger, a narrow and sharp dagger landed in his palm. 10 moves. Duan Yu curled his lips and said with a nod, "If I can last 10 moves, what will you say, lady boy?" He. Ling's eyes narrowed into crescents. "Little big brother, you can talk after you fight." Sir Jojo, who was originally expressionlessly watching from the side, suddenly shifted his eyes in Ling's direction. The more he listened to the two's conversation, the more he felt something was amiss. Suddenly, Sir Jojo glared with his hands on his hips and pointed at Ling. He looked up and asked Duan Yu, What did you say? You called her a lady boy? And you called her a lady boy. Could it be she's a man?" Chapter 3052. Duan Yu's handsome face darkened, and he suspiciously sized up the little fellow. "You think he's a girl?" Arbor was flabbergasted. "Ah, my dear Xiao, could it be that you were taken advantage of by this punk?" "No," the little fellow expressionlessly replied. Duan Yu abruptly burst into laughter and looked her up and down, his gaze involuntarily revealing a hint of mockery. "That's true. How could someone take advantage of you with your childish appearance?" Xiao Xiao's face was expressionless. Her wooden face was expressionless. "Don't think that your freaking laughter can cover up your amused expression. Then can you tell me why you became like this?" As Duan Yu spoke, he had already pulled out his handy raven bone fan and flew it towards Feather. "Do you think I'll tell you?" "Ha ha." Sir Jojo pursed his lips and didn't say a word. Clang clang. 2 crisp sounds clashed, and a faint trace of hesitation involuntarily slipped through Feather's eyes. This punk in front of him looked like he was at the God Realm, but the power he contained was far above the God Realm. There wasn't much of a difference between him and him. What was going on? Could it be that this punk also used an aura-concealing talisman or something similar, and used a smokescreen to lower his cultivation realm? When Fei Zhuang and the twin brothers, Tang Quan and Tang Li, saw this, they were about to fly over when the surrounding natives started making a ruckus again. A native elderly walked up and suddenly prostrated himself on the ground. Tears streamed down his face as he whimpered about something unknown. This elderly man spoke a string of words, but Sir Jojo expressed that he didn't understand a single word. Tang Quan and Tang Li's path was blocked by several hundred natives and couldn't pass at all. A vicious glint flashed through Tang Quan's eyes, and he was about to impatiently split these natives apart. Unexpectedly, Mo Lien, who was fighting with the young master Omega Kitoku, turned around and mumbled something to that native elderly man. That old geezer immediately revealed a deeply grateful expression and bowed several times toward Mo Lien. Behind him, the native female chief also knelt down with a group of natives and piously kowtowed several times to crown Prince Mo before retreating to the side with her people. Everyone looked at our dear Mo Lien in bewilderment. Lady Xiao Xiao's face was also filled with confusion. Jojo's Lotus actually knew how to speak the native language? Who knew what he was babbling about earlier? But those natives' expressions when they looked at him were all very reverent, practically worshipping him as a god. Right now, Mo Lien didn't have the time to explain too much to other people. His entire mind was focused on second young Master Qin. The moment he raised his hand slightly, a few faint wisps of black flames floated up from his side, slowly condensing and shrinking. The black flames were like blooming ink-colored lotuses floating around his body, and very quickly they bloomed in clusters. Omega Kitoku's expression changed slightly, and the moment he took a few steps back, he saw the ink-colored lotuses streaking across his eyes like shooting stars, all gathering in front of him. Suddenly, there was a loud tremor, and all the ink-colored lotuses bloomed to the peak at the same time. Suddenly, as if they couldn't withstand this huge force, they all shattered and turned into fine powder, shooting towards the young Master Omega Kitoku from all directions. Young Master! The thin red blood vessels in Tang Quan's eyes were about to burst. This time, not to mention the second young master, even if Ling was in front of him, it would be difficult for him to escape unscathed. Ling was also secretly shocked and exerted strength in his feet, flying towards the direction of Omega Kitoku. Chapter 3053. However, the raven bone fan in Duan Yu's hand had already turned into a streak of light and transformed into a sharp sword, charging towards Feather's back with a terrifying demonic fire. If Feather wanted to dodge, he would definitely not be able to reach young Master Omega Kitoku in time. As a result, he could only grit his teeth and forcibly endure Duan Yu's strike. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived at second Qin's side and reached out to catch more than half of the ink-colored lotus flower powder in front of him. His expression abruptly changed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood with a puff. His figure swayed. The second young master was not in a much better state. Although Feather had swiftly blocked for him, there was still a huge disparity between his cultivation and Mo Lien's. Even with Feather blocking in front, the remaining portion of energy flew towards him, causing his expression to turn unsightly. The instant he supported Feather and retreated swiftly, young Master Omega Kitoku whistled and suddenly threw out a transportation talisman matrix. That talisman matrix flickered, and the people in front of them disappeared at the same time. Mo Lien stopped after 2 steps and reached out to stop Duan Yu, who wanted to give chase. At this time, the dumbfounded Mu Xingqian had also rushed over with a pale face. He couldn't resist asking, "They ran away?" "They ran away." Duan Yu nodded and glanced at Mu Xingqian. "Are you all right, big brother?" Mo Lien instantly cast a glance at Duan Yu. This punk called him big brother so intimately. He really didn't freaking treat himself as an outsider. Arbor expressionlessly watched young Master Omega Kitoku and his group flee rapidly before shifting her gaze to Mo Lien and Duan Yu. She shook her head helplessly and inwardly criticized. Men are actually quite belligerent. While she was pondering, Mo Lien had already rushed to her side and picked her up. She looked at her strangely and asked, "Jojo, are you feeling unwell? Did those people from Omega Kitoku capture you? Did they do anything to you?" Arbor glanced at Prince Mo. "I don't think they would dare to do anything to me." "Then why do you look like that? What's wrong with my appearance?" The little guy snorted and raised his little head slightly. With a calm expression, he said, "Isn't that good?" Puff. Duan Yu very shamelessly laughed out loud. Mu Xingqian, on the other hand, sized up Arbor with a dumbfounded expression and cried out involuntarily, "Sister Yu, how did you do this? How could this be? Did they give you some kind of poisonous medicine that harmed you?" "Big brother, you can rest assured." Duan Yu snickered and interrupted the nervous Mu Xingqian. He said with a chuckle, "Based on my many years of experience interacting with Jojo, I can tell that Jojo is a very good person. This little guy must have made a talisman and cheated himself." Mr. Jojo looked at them expressionlessly. Mu Xingqian couldn't resist twitching his mouth and looked at his sister curiously. Sister, is what Duan Yu said true? What the hell would he know? Mr. Jojo harumphed haughtily. Jojo, that time, when you didn't recognize your family and didn't even recognize us, it couldn't be that you also used a strange talisman to turn yourself into that state, right? Duan Yu suddenly felt like he had discovered the truth, because he saw Mr. Jojo's increasingly stoic face looking at him expressionlessly. Based on his understanding of the little guy, even when the little guy's heart was crumbling, he would always put on a front nonsense. Mr. Jojo roared. Chapter 3054. Waving her small hand impatiently, the little fellow glanced at the sardonic Emolien. Hurry and release my divine sense shackles. Emolien nodded and gently brushed her small head. Just as she was about to leave with her in her arms, she saw the native tribe's female leader jogging over. She knelt down in front of Emolien with a plop, repeatedly kowtowing and chanting some gibberish that people couldn't understand at all. Arbor's head was filled with black lines as he looked at that native tribe's female leader before looking up at Lien, who was hugging him. Prince Mo was unperturbed as he chattered with that female leader before turning to Duan Yu and saying, "They invited us to their tribe to stay the night." Duan Yu glanced at that simple and crude cave and nodded. That's fine too. That female leader and her entourage appeared very happy when they agreed, and they kept chattering with Emolien in a strange language along the way. Emolien would occasionally reply to her, which made that female leader dance with joy. "What are you talking about?" Arbor asked expressionlessly. Could they not speak the bird language that Sir Jojo couldn't understand? Emolien couldn't help but want to laugh as she hugged Jojo and softly explained. Their female leader is called Dowa, and that elderly man is their tribe's sage, Hook. Cough. Did they want to rob us just now? Arbor blinked, looking like a curious baby. The female leader, Dowa, had already finished reciting the words, "This road is opened by me," but she suddenly became terrified. It was unknown why. Lady Qiao Qiao was still thinking that whoever dared to rob her, she would beat them up. In the end, her violent side did not have a place to show its power. When Emolien looked down at this Jojo, she couldn't help but recall the pile of babies moving gold ores she saw inside the Tower of Punishment. They climbed up the gold ores one by one, their eyes sparkling with the light of gold as their small hands and feet continuously moved the gold ores. So interesting. Her heart was about to be melted by this little imp. Emolien lowered her body and said with a smile, "They came from the desert outside the Forgetfulness River and traveled all the way here. With such a large group of people, they naturally wouldn't dare to enter the city rashly." Arbor nodded. He knew very well that if these hundreds of people were to march into the city at the same time, it would definitely arouse the vigilance of the city guards. It might even lead to a large-scale conflict. They planned to stay at the Red River Tribe's place for a while and hand over the documents to the nearby cities. Because we're lacking in resources and this Red River Canyon belongs to the Red River Tribe, we have to pay rent to the Red River Tribe if we want to hunt anything. So they wanted to do a free trade. However, as soon as the trade started, I tore through space and appeared. Emolien muttered in her ear, "The natives believe in the heavens and think that this is a warning from the heavens for their evil deeds." Arbor nodded. No wonder they all respected Emolien like she was a god. Could it be that they thought that Emolien, who tore through space, was an emissary sent by the heavens? "How do you know the language of the natives?" "I don't know too much." Emolien winked at him and said with a smug expression, "Jojo, do you admire your husband's ability?" Sir Jojo nodded his small head. Emolien laughed. "Did Jojo use a strange talisman to make yourself like this?" Sir Jojo nodded his small head again and then suddenly reacted. Chapter 3055. Sir Jojo was actually tricked by Jojo's lotus. Jerk, how could he speak like this? One question was linked to another completely unrelated question, causing her to be unable to react in time and freaking answer truthfully. Such a deep trap, simply impossible to guard against. The little fellow scowled and leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm so sleepy, I want to sleep. Too lazy to talk to you guys. She clearly heard Big Brother and Duan use muffled laughter behind them. How could they be so loathsome? However, Yin shook her with a smile. What's sleep? We've reunited after a long separation. So, shouldn't we have a good chat? How was it long? It had only been a day. The little fellow glanced at him. What do you want to say? Weren't you curious why hubby can communicate with the natives? Let me tell you, your husband has learned a lot since he was young. Prince Imo boasted repeatedly in front of his wife. I know everything from astronomy to geography, and I've read extensively. There's nothing I don't know. Sir Jojo pursed her lips. Go ahead and brag. Don't you feel awkward making yourself sound like you're omnipotent? What's with that expression? Prince Imo rubbed her small face. Why aren't you saying that hubby is so awesome? Sir Jojo was exasperated. She looked up at him and pinched his face. Very thick. Cough, cough, cough. Mu Xingqian couldn't hold back his laughter and coughed to cover it. Big brother, you vomited for a long time just now. Are you feeling better now? Sir Jojo turned to ask. Much better. It would have been better if he didn't mention it, because Mu Xingqian felt a bit awkward. After all, he actually vomited from the bumpy air when he thought of this. Mu Xingqian couldn't help but take a deep look at Lien. This brother-in-law of his truly concealed his strength and was very frightening. The three types of power that wandered outside of the five spirits were the power of the dark netherworld, the power of deprivation bestowed by the gods, and his brother-in-law's power of nothingness. It was said that the power of nothingness could form terrifying flames of nothingness in the later stages, capable of incinerating everything in the world. Brother-in-law was already in control of the sacred fire, which was feared by many. If he were to comprehend the fire of nothingness, he would be unrivaled in the world. Sir Jojo moved his little hands and feet and expressionlessly said to Mu Xingqian, who was deep in thought, Big brother, come here for a moment. Mu Xingqian hurried over. Sister, what's the matter? Mr. Jojo took out an antiemetic pill from his inner world and handed it to him. Take it. You won't feel nauseous after taking it. Okay. Mu Xingqian still had a headache and nausea, but he wasn't as dizzy as before. His symptoms were naturally caused by the tearing of the void. Not everyone could be as careless as Duan Yu, who was unaffected by the tearing of the void. The female leader of the natives stepped forward and bowed respectfully to Lien before muttering a few words in her language. Lien nodded at her and then said to everyone, their tribe's gathering place is just up ahead. Arbor lay on his shoulder and squinted sleepily. I'll sleep for a while first. Okay. Her current body was that of a 5 or 6-year-old child. Speaking of which, after this body shrunk, some of her bodily functions seemed to have returned to a 5 or 6-year-old child. It was truly worrying. That female chief muttered something, but Arbor had already blocked it. Chapter 3056. Sir Jojo was woken up by a series of noisy noises. When he opened his eyes, it was already dawn. Outside, many natives had already come out of their tents and were preparing piping hot steam buns and rice porridge. The clamor didn't stop. Sir Jojo turned over and saw Prince Imo lying on his side, next to her with one hand propping up his chin and looking at her with a grin. She rolled her eyes and expressionlessly turned over again, planning to continue sleeping. However, Lien didn't let her continue sleeping. He picked her up and said with melancholy, Sigh, it's really worrying that wifey has become so small. The little fellow's face flushed red, and she couldn't say anything for a long time. Jojo, what do you want to eat for breakfast? Shrimp dumplings and bird's nest porridge, the little fellow said expressionlessly. Wow, hubby really understands wifey's heart. He's already prepared it for you. Although the little fellow didn't show it on her face, she was smiling on the inside. She pursed her lips and commanded, Put me down. That won't do. You're so short that even walking 2 steps is so slow. You're not even as tall as the basin rack. Hubby should wash you while carrying you. You're the short one. Your entire Mo family is short. Sir Jojo ridiculed in his mind and harumphed. Put Sir Jojo on the stool. Lien held back his laughter and nodded reluctantly. He still obeyed and fetched a stool for the little fellow and placed it in front of the basin rack. The little stoic expressionlessly started washing up. As she washed, she roasted in her mind. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have dug a hole for myself. Jojo, since you transformed into this appearance, why didn't you take the chance to escape? I was waiting for you. Arbor wiped his face with a wet handkerchief and casually tossed it into the basin before jumping off the stool. Emollien's figure flashed and arrived next to her. He stretched out his arm and pulled her into his embrace again. Your husband prepared a sumptuous breakfast for you early in the morning. Are you happy? Emollien carried her out of the tent with a grin. His footsteps paused, and he lowered his head to whisper to her, Chow Chow changed her mind and stayed because of those people from Little Leaf Village, right? Arbor was silent for a while, but he still nodded. If I don't show up, Omega Katoku will most likely bring people to massacre the entire village. Oh, why do you say that? Emollien's eyes flashed as she lowered her head to look at her little face. Arbor's heart tightened, and he felt that his voice was a little hoarse. It was because she understood Second Chin's personality better than anyone else. Back then, they had been together for such a long time. Bits and pieces of memories could be blurry, but some of the pain engraved in the bottom of their hearts could not be erased. She didn't want to lie to Jojo's run. She didn't want to lie to him about anything. So she said, Didn't I tell you before that I had a very long dream? Emollien's breathing subsequently tightened as he nodded his head. In my dream, he was there, that person. In my dream, Omega Katoku was a very stubborn person. Although I wanted to leave the people of Shaoli Village behind and escape by myself, it's not impossible. But in the end, I still can't gamble with so many people's lives. I know that person's personality. If it was him in my dream, he would have attacked. He would not hesitate to use the lives of the villagers to threaten me. I also thought about it carefully. Should I leave all of this alone? Or should I stay for the sake of those villagers? I don't know. Chapter 30:57. In the end, I followed my heart and stayed. However, if that person wants to use the lives of those villagers to threaten me, I can't guarantee what choice I will make. A large part of the reason she stayed behind for the sake of the old grandpa, and Nyo was for the sake of these villagers. She was this kind of person. As long as someone showed her a trace of kindness, she would return it with 10 points or more. Moreover, she also had her own pride in her heart. She didn't want to implicate some strangers because of her. But now, something seemed to have changed a bit from her previous life. Sir Jojo blinked in confusion as he recalled what Sir Omega Katoku said to him. No matter what the past was, at least now, I want to get along well with you. Could they really continue to get along well? All right, Jojo, don't think about it anymore. Emollien gently touched her forehead. I know what you will choose. You little fellow, who is stubborn but soft-hearted, will definitely choose to stay. I will support you no matter what you do. Emollien shook her body and said with a smile, Just do what you want to do. Don't go against your heart. Arbor smiled at him. Jojo's lotus was the best. It was so easy to talk to Jojo's lotus. Morning, Jojo. Morning, younger sister. Sir Jojo turned around and saw Duan Yu and Mu Xingqian coincidentally walking over from outside the tent. When they saw them, they waved and greeted her. Sir Jojo's mood instantly brightened up. Who cares about those things that haven't happened yet? Why should I care so much about them? Different situations call for different measures. She had many friends and relatives by her side in this life, so it couldn't be as desolate as in her previous life. Morning, eldest brother. Morning, Duan Yu. Sir Jojo expressionlessly waved at them. Do you want a roast meat? I can roast some for you. Mu Xingqian's eyes lit up, and he was about to nod with a smile when he felt someone poke his waist. Duan Yu said with a grin, Yeah, how could I let my chow roast meat? What's more, with your short stature, it's not convenient for you to do such heavy work. Jojo, leave the ingredients to me. I'll do it. You're the one with 5 shortcomings. Your entire Rome family has 5 shortcomings. Sir Jojo's stoic face was expressionless as he took out ingredients from his inner world and handed them to Duan Yu. He looked at him in confusion and asked, Duan Yu, Is my barbecue really that hard to swallow? How could that be? Duanyu blinked before turning to smile at her. Jojo's barbecue is delicious. It's just that you're so young now, so it's not appropriate for you to barbecue. On the side, Mu Xingqian put on an indifferent expression and glanced askance at Duanyu. He couldn't help but chuckle in his mind. Your Highness, do you know how exaggerated and unrealistic your expression is? Sir Jojo nodded. Let me think. My roasted meat shouldn't taste that bad. Peach Blossoms and the others are fighting over the food I roast. Duanyu's mouth involuntarily twitched. Just how much did the venerable celestial want to die? Husband? Mo Lien coughed lightly and nodded in all seriousness. Jojo's roasted colorful divine fish is especially delicious. When we're free, I'll have Jojo roast it for you guys. I'm thanking your entire family. Duanyu silently swept a glance at Mo Lien before carrying the ingredients to where the natives were gathered. When the native sage saw Mo Lien and the others coming over, he quickly stood up with his clansmen. Chapter 3058. The native female chief was deeply grateful, leading her clansmen to hurriedly thank Mo Lien and the others. Jojo, Darren, and the others naturally couldn't understand the native female chief, who was passionately chattering in front of them. Listening to the end, Jojo turned to look at Mo Lien. What did she say? She was praising your husband for his benevolence, for being the husband of the great divine province, and for having a beautiful wife, saying that the two of us are especially compatible. Jojo, Darren looked down at his own short arms and legs, and couldn't help but chuckle in his heart. Her husband felt that he couldn't understand the native female chief's words, so he blindly translated it. With her small appearance, how could she be especially compatible with her husband? A match made in heaven? Did her husband think she was retarded? It's true. Mo Lien looked at her especially seriously. I never lied to my Chiao. I wrote a letter to the city lord of the nearby Spring City. In 5 days, they should be able to move into the city and settle down. Mo Lien said with a smile. So this Dewan sage are especially grateful to your husband. As soon as I told them that you are my wife, they naturally praised you to the heavens. Jojo, Darren's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. Mo Lien continued. Let's stay here for another day or two. This is the only way to the Sun Moon Temple. You can rest assured that Holy Sun Mi Yin will definitely pass by here with his people. Let's just stay here and wait for them. Arbor. So Holy Sun Mi Yin and the others were still floating in the Duchun River? Why did she suddenly feel that Holy Sun Mi Yin was a bit miserable? Jojo, what's wrong? No cough, nothing. Arbor waved her small hand and was carried by Mo Lien to the small table to sit down. Soon, a sumptuous breakfast was served. Arbor didn't have the heart to care about anything else, and focused on eating her shrimp dumplings and bird's nest porridge. As for Holy Sun Mi Yin, just let him float. 2 days later, the female leader of the Aborigines warmly received a messenger from Spring City. That night, she bid farewell to the Crown Prince and followed the messenger from Spring City, leading all the Aborigines to migrate to Spring City. On the 3rd day, close to the evening, this empty tent camp finally welcomed a group of old, weak, sick, and disabled people. When Holy Sun Mi Yin saw Mo Lien and the others, he let out a sigh of relief and said, Ah, Prince Mo. Prince Chunyu, you're all here? It turned out that these people were much faster than them. In the past 3 to 4 days, Holy Sun Mi Yin had been drifting on the Duchun River. At first, he swayed in the wrong direction and then turned back. After repeating this several times, he finally determined the direction. That was why he rushed over so late. Moreover, he had not been doing well these past few days. On one hand, he was worried about the whereabouts of Mo Lien and the others. On the other hand, he was worried that something might have happened to the temple. He firmly believed that the mutation of the Saintess had nothing to do with the temple. It was most likely that the Saintess had secretly joined some evil cult, which was why she got into trouble. How could such a mutated monster appear in their Sun Moon Temple, which was bright and virtuous? Impossible. Holy Sunmi Yin led a group of people who had soaked on the river for a long time and finally climbed ashore with great difficulty. They walked towards Mo Lien and Duan Yu. Thankfully, you are all fine. Everyone, take a look again and see if any of your companions are absent. We plan to rest here for 3 days, and then Holy Sunmi Yin paused, and his odd gaze landed on Arbor. He couldn't help but exclaim, You? How did you become like this? Chapter 3059. Sir Jojo expressionlessly glanced at Holy Sunmi Yin. Who are you? Prince Mo, Duan Yu, and Mu Xingqian couldn't resist twitching their mouths. This little fellow's tricks were quite deep. She pretended to be so serious, as if it was real. Holy Sunmi Yin was evidently taken aback by this little stoic face, and he couldn't help but ask suspiciously, You? Aren't you Qiao, Miss Qiao? Nonsense. The little girl's face was cold as she said indifferently, Don't try to claim kinship with me. I don't know you. We don't know each other at all. Holy Sunmi Yin glanced at Prince Mo before looking at Duan Yu and Mu Xingqian in confusion. You're the one spouting nonsense. Do you think I'm stupid? This stoic face of yours doesn't change no matter where you go. Do you think other people can't recognize you? Arbor. She hurriedly turned to look at her husband and asked with a straight face, Is it true? Mo Yin tugged at the corner of her lips. It was truly difficult for her to restrain herself, but she nodded. Yes. Sir Jojo reflexively rubbed his face, feeling melancholy and vexed. It was simply baffling. So it was like this? The reason why Sir Jojo could be seen through at a glance every time was entirely because this little face was stoic? Stoic? Was it really so easy to recognize a stoic face? The little fellow looked at the crown prince in bewilderment before glancing at Duan Yu, who was stifling his laughter. She silently turned to Holy Sunmi Yin and said, Holy Sun, your eyesight is quite good. Sir Holy Sun. Fuck. Why did he inexplicably have the urge to burst into laughter? This child must be dim-witted. After being exposed, she still said such hilarious words. Arbor also felt a bit stifled. If possible, he really didn't want to talk to this Holy Sunmi Yin. The feeling of having your identity exposed at any moment was truly too unpleasant. Cough, cough, cough. Mu Xingqian hurriedly stepped forward to smooth things over for his little sister. By the way, Saint, have you seen our other teammates? At that time, everyone was floating around in the Duchun River, so we didn't have time to care too much. The Holy Sun looked at Mu Xingqian with a sincere expression and said, Among your teammates, there are a few whose realms aren't particularly high. I reckon that they will float in the Duchun River for a longer time. Everyone was speechless. Is Lord Saint not joking? Mu Xingqian also coughed and said, Since that's the case, let's do as the saint said and rest here for 3 days. Very good. The son of God nodded and turned to look at Arbor's expressionless face. Miss Jojo, what are you doing? Why did it become like this? Arbor let out a long sigh. It's a long story. Go and rest first. Who told you that? Whoever said that was an idiot. Sir Jojo snorted inwardly and complained in a small voice. Mo Yin couldn't help but turn her head. She felt that this little fellow's act of pretending to be old was especially interesting. Holy Sunmi Yin and the others were indeed extremely tired and nodded. Fortunately, this was originally a temporary gathering place for the natives, so they had set up quite a number of tents. They didn't take them away when they left. Thus, Holy Sunmi Yin and the others had a place to stay. Arbor watched Holy Sunmi Yin and the others enter their respective tents before turning to look at Mo Yin. Do you think he's pretending? Chapter 3060. I don't think he's pretending. Mo Yin shook her head and said, If he was pretending, then he could have hidden behind the holy nun when she mutated. I noticed his expression at that time. When he saw Nye Yaowang mutate, he was more surprised than anyone else. From this, it could be seen that Mi Yin probably didn't expect this. When a person encounters a special event, their most realistic reaction will not be overlooked. Mo Yin recalled the situation on the Duchun River and said with certainty, at that time, he subconsciously fought with the corpse crocodiles summoned by the holy nun. Furthermore, with Mi Yan's arrogant and cold temperament, he should disdain to wallow in the mire with the holy nun. I think, Mo Lien said softly, he probably doesn't know. Moreover, he should be very conflicted right now. He must feel that something has happened to the sanctuary, so he rested for 3 days. Firstly, is to wait for the other people stranded on the Du-Chun River to come. Secondly, he will definitely send people to the sanctuary first to find out what's going on. Arbor's eyes brightened slightly. Hearing this, he nodded and said, Lien smart. Being praised by his wife, Crown Prince Lien, whose tail was itching to fly, nodded with a smile and said, That's natural. Your husband, I, am extraordinarily intelligent. Then what should we do now? Wait and see. Prince Mo squeezed her small hand and indicated for her to look at the tent at the side. A priest lifted the tent curtain and walked out quickly. He nodded at the two of them awkwardly and then left quickly. Holy Sun Mi Yin also walked out, seeing the two of them still standing outside. He couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Then he smiled awkwardly and said, we've been delayed for quite a while on the road this time. I asked Radiance to return to the sanctuary to take a look. I don't know if there's any change in the mystic realm. Mo Yin winked at Jojo. The latter nodded knowingly. With a cold expression, he said in a stiff voice, Holy Sun, please do as you wish. The saint snorted and said, Let's rest. Arbor glanced at his back and turned to ask Prince Mo, What's wrong with him? His face was still fine when he came out, but now it had turned sour. Did he not want to see Sir Jojo? Mo Yin stifled a chuckle. He shook his head and said without batting an eyelid, The Holy Sun will feel uncomfortable inside when he sees us being so sweet. Why? Think about it. He's an old bachelor who has been single for hundreds of years. How comfortable can he be when he sees us tormenting his nerves? When Sir Jojo heard this, he nodded his head seriously. That's true. She paused and then said, Then I'll try not to appear in front of him in the future. At this moment, Holy Sun Mi Yin, who was sitting in the tent, almost spilled the tea that he had just poured out. Who are you calling an old bachelor? Holy Sun Mi Yin gritted his teeth and stood up furiously. He flung his sleeves and walked out of the tent. He lifted the tent flap and poked his head out to take a look. There was no sign of that hateful couple, standing in front of someone else's tent and calling him an old bachelor without the slightest scruple. Only that wicked couple would do such a thing. Holy Sun Mi Yan's handsome face darkened. He slammed down the tent flap and walked in while panting with rage. He decided not to say a word to this couple tomorrow. Seeing them annoyed him. Chapter 3061. Arbor naturally didn't know what Holy Sun Mi Yin was thinking. After she was carried back to her tent by Mo Yin, she slept until the middle of the night. Suddenly, she was awakened by a familiar voice. Master, 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 master. Ah, this demonic voice was her tree. It was her Chochio. Chochio was finally moving. The little fellow flipped over and sat up, her large movement instantly startling Crown Prince Mo, who was beside her, awake. What's wrong, Jojo? Prince Mo also sat up. A candle lit up in the corner of the tent, illuminating the little fellow's face. He originally thought that she was having a nightmare. Seeing that she looked normal now, he was slightly relieved. He asked softly, What's wrong, Jojo? Chochio spoke. Arbor blinked and tugged at his sleeve. Set up a defensive barrier. Okay. Mo Yin waved her hand, and a defensive barrier was drawn outside the tent. The two of them then hid inside Paradise Planet, looking at the lush trees, green mountains, and clear waters of the Star Sector. Lord Jojo breathed a sigh of relief. She had been on tenterhooks for the past 2 days, not knowing what had happened in the Star Sector. Chochio? Master, master, master. Chochio's screams resounded through the entire space. Those who didn't know would think that something had happened to the little fellow. Arbor expressionlessly walked towards the source of the sound. From afar, she saw that strange-looking treant jumping under a peach tree in front of her. It looked like it was having an epileptic seizure. It couldn't stop dancing. Xiao Mu gazed at it exasperatedly before looking up at her husband. Mo Yin chuckled. Reaching out, He picked her up and walked quickly to the little tree, dancing crazily. What happened, Chocho? Calm down. Master, Chocho can't calm down, Master. Chocho suddenly turned around. Just as it was about to complain to its little master, it saw its little master's short figure. Chocho couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Ah, Master, why is it like this? How did you become like this? Who is it? Who did this to you when Chocho wasn't around? Chocho will definitely avenge Master. Wah wah wah. While the little tray ant was roaring, the little dirt lump, the little water droplet, and the rest of the little ones also swarmed towards her like a swarm of bees. They all gathered around their little master's tiny body to surround her. Sir Jojo stared expressionlessly at the tree that was howling like a ghost. After it finished howling for a while, he said with a stoic face, "Shut up." Everyone was speechless. "Why, my Joe?" A red shadow flashed through the crowd and quickly arrived in front of Arbor. He reached out and snatched her away. Holding her in his arms, he said, "Wow, Jojo, how did you become so small?" She was so small and adorable. Shichin smiled as he looked her up and down. "What kind of strange talisman did you use?" "No." Sir Jojo tried his best to maintain a stern expression. He waved his arms and legs. "Put her down." Prince Mo, who had his little wife snatched away in a moment of carelessness, hurriedly snatched his wife back. Holding her in his arms, he took a few steps back and looked at the venerable peach blossom immortal opposite him with a wary expression. "Go and carry your own wife." These words were definitely hurtful. Everyone present was single. Not to mention a wife, they hadn't even seen a strand of her hair. Dao Wuji, who had had many wives in the past, felt that his heart had been pierced enough. Chapter 3062. Master. The sapling hastily called out again. It propped up its sapling body and pattered over to Xiaomu. It cried out tearfully, "Master, Chocho might be dying soon." "Nonsense. Look, look, little ball's body has mutated. Master, look, little ball has an eye on its body. It's so scary, so scary, so scary." The little guy was like a demon again. He kept saying the words "so scary," his voice lingering in everyone's ears. Arbor was really annoyed by his shouting. He clapped his hands and hit him on the head. "Shut up, Master." Little Ball looked at her pitifully and straightened his body. Master Jojo's height now was not even as tall as Little Tree. Little Tray Ant had an eye on its trunk. It was black and white, and it looked really creepy. No wonder Little Ball was screaming for help as if the sky was falling. "This thing did look quite scary, Master. Master, what do we do? Is Chocho about to die?" Little Tray Ant started to cry as he spoke. He looked at his little master with misty eyes and a pitiful expression. "He won't die." Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. Then he pulled Little Tray Ant to his side and leaned closer to study the eye. "Jojo." Emolian hurriedly reached out and pulled Little Tray Ant to her side. Her expression was serious as she said, "Be careful." They didn't know what the hell this thing was. It actually grew on Little Ball's trunk. It was as if it had grown in Little Ball's body from the beginning. Right now, it was peacefully closing its eye. There was a faint light in its eyes, and it looked at them with a scary look. "Chocho, this thing makes people panic." The little water droplet shuffled its small body and retreated behind Xiao Mu and Mo Lien step by step. "Master, has Little Ball mutated?" "I won't." Arbor narrowed his eyes and stared at that eye for a long time. He couldn't help but hit his little head. "What's wrong?" Emolian quickly reached out and grabbed her little hand. "I think." Arbor tilted his little head and looked at the eye on Chocho's body. He thought carefully and said, "I think I recognize it." "Huh?" Little Tree was a little excited and hurriedly asked Arbor, "Master Silver, you recognize it? What is it? Do you know?" "Mag Iris, Mag Iris." Arbor murmured and could not help but hit his little head. "I think I've seen it somewhere before." "Really, Master?" Little Tree looked at her hopefully and asked, "Then do you have a way to take this ugly thing off my body?" Xiaomu shook her head with a stoic expression. "My intuition tells me that you did this yourself." "What?" The little tree, Chocho's black bean-like eyes immediately rippled with steam. Master dis Little Ball." Master said that little ball did this himself. Did this mean that Chocho had sucked in this strange eye on its own? Impossible. Little ball didn't remember anything like this at all. Wah 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 wah. Little ball suddenly fell to the ground and rolled around shamelessly. Little ball can't live anymore. Master doesn't love little ball at all. Chapter 3063. Sob sob sob. Chocho has eyes. Xiao Mu was exasperated as she looked at this little thing that was lying on the ground and fooling around. She glanced at it exasperatedly. The ground is so cold. Don't you feel uncomfortable rolling around? Chocho doesn't feel uncomfortable. Chocho only feels pain all over, and it's so unbearable everywhere. The little treant wailed as it rolled around Xiao Mu's feet, rolling back and forth. Arbor looked down at it helplessly. Get up first. Let me think about how to solve this. Master, you really have a way to solve this eye on my body. Chocho sat up and looked hopefully at its little master. For some reason, as long as its master said he knew something, the little treant felt that its little master definitely had the ability to solve it. The little treant Chocho had such blind faith in its little master. Arbor waved at her and simply sat down on a stone bench under the peach tree. The little treant Chocho hurriedly trotted over with a fawning expression. Master, have you thought of anything? The little master said it recognized this eye and even knew its name, so it must have really seen it before. Arbor thought carefully for a while, then looked up and down at the eye for a long time before saying mildly, "This should be a tree seed." What? Chocho squealed, then shook its head like a rattle drum. Impossible, impossible. Arbor didn't give it a chance to continue deceiving itself and said mildly, "No tree seed can hurt you. You know that. You must have felt that this tree seed was useful, so you sucked it in." Chocho. Master, what kind of expression is that? Is it really appropriate for you to look at Chocho with such disdain? Arbor looked at it mildly. It's especially appropriate. She could now guarantee that this tree seed was sucked in by Chocho, who had courted death, and it had been sucked in through her conscience. So she vaguely felt a sense of déjà vu. He couldn't quite remember where he had gotten this tree, but he could still vaguely recall the name Magic Eye. Little Tree looked at her pitifully. Master Silver, there's really no way to save Chocho. Chocho now felt that the half-dead Ren-Er's eye on its body, which was rolling its eyes, was truly frightening. It could not even accept looking at it, much less going out to meet others in the future. Sob sob. Master, think of a way, think of a way. Little Tree hugged her and wailed loudly. She felt particularly miserable and pitiful. There was actually such a thing growing on her body. Just looking at it made her feel disgusted. Is this the reason why I lost contact with you these past few days? Chocho nodded vigorously. Master, it's all because of these eyes. When I realized that something was wrong, the entire star field was no longer under my control. This demonic eye was truly surprising. Arbor reached out a finger and boldly stroked that eye on Little Tree's body. That single eye with distinct black and white blinked quickly. The white of the eye rolled up, and the dim light swept across Arbor deeply. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. Miss Chow's hand had reached out extremely quickly, and no one had been able to stop her. Chapter 3064. Therefore, they were really shocked. At this moment, everyone was looking at this little girl with disapproving gazes. Truly too unreliable. How could he be so bold and reckless? Wasn't she afraid that this supercilious person would open its eyes and swallow her small hand? Evidently, Arbor didn't think that this weird-looking, supercilious person in front of her would attack her at all. In fact, after her small hand reached out to stroke it, she could still feel this Little Tree's jubilant mood. The little stoic pursed her lips and glanced at Chocho, who was still lying on the ground hugging her leg. Get up. Master. Master. Chocho thinks that Chocho can still be saved. Master, save Chocho. Save Chocho. The little stoic chuckled. Since you created it yourself, you have to take good care of it in the future. Chocho stared flabbergasted at its little master. While little master didn't love it anymore, little master really didn't love it anymore. Not only was little Masta dissing it now, but she was also saying such resolute words to it. Wah wah wah. Little Masta, all right. Arbor looked at it expressionlessly and said, "Get up first." Won't get up. Chocho won't get up. If Masta still doesn't save Chocho, Chocho won't get up for the rest of my life. Then continue lying down. The little stoic turned around and broke into a run. We're busy outside, so we're going out first. Wah! Chocho let out an earth-shattering wail and pounced on Arbor's leg. Masta! Save Chocho! Save Chocho! Arbor looked at this little guy with a dark expression. Why did she feel that this lousy child was so funny? Emolien also looked at it speechlessly. Although Chocho's usual behavior was a bit unreliable, it had never been as anxious and uneasy as today. It could even be said that it was fretful Masta. All right. Arbor picked it up from the ground and said earnestly, "Don't look down on this little tree. Look, it's now growing on your trunk. It's like you have an extra eye." The little treant stared at its little master, flabbergasted. Master, if you have an extra eye, wouldn't you become a monster?" Arbor pursed his lips and glanced at it with disdain. "You're a tree that has become a spirit. You can jump, run, and sing. You've been a monster for a long time." Everyone was speechless. Ha 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 ha. Dao Wuji laughed out loud. Damn, listening to the conversation between the little girl and the tree, why did it feel so funny? The little Tran exclaimed and was about to continue howling. Arbor pressed down on its mouth. "All right, think about it. From now on, you'll have another little brother. Isn't that great?" Chocho looked at her with tears in its eyes. "Master, is there really no way to save him?" Arbor's mouth twitched. "To be honest, it's quite difficult to save him. Look at this white-eyed runner. He's already fused with your wood spirit's original source. It can be said that he's living by attaching himself to you and hasn't offended you or provoked you. You can't dig him out and let him die for no reason, right? We'll get used to it when we see it, huh?" Arbor rubbed Chocho's Tran head hard. "Don't be afraid. Master is here." Chocho drooped its little head and looked listless. Chapter 3065. Chocho. Arbor wanted to tease this little fellow, so he took out a pill from his inner world and handed it to Chocho. "Here, this is Masta's new spirit intensification pill. It's good for you. In the future, you don't need to chew on that tough spirit jade anymore. With the spirit intensification pill's assistance, you can advance faster in the future." Chocho rolled and crawled up from the ground, hastily reaching out to take the spirit intensification pill from little Masta's hand. Blinking its eyes, it asked, "Masta, then what should I do in the future?" "What do you mean, what to do?" Chocho forced a bitter expression and looked at the little stoic tearfully. "There's an eye on my stomach." It pointed at the magic eye tree species on its tree trunk that was rolling its eyes. "I'll definitely be laughed at to death if I walk out." Arbor coughed lightly and took out a small red doo-doo from his inner world, beckoning Chocho over. Chocho hesitated, feeling like something bad would happen if it walked over. Seeing its hesitation, Arbor couldn't resist giving it a sidelong glance. "Hurry over." "Oh." Chocho shuffled over to Sir Jojo, and its eyes swiveled. "Masta, what do you want to do?" "Masta wants to make you a small garment. This way, it can cover the white eye on your stomach." Chocho! Exclamation point. Its branch pointed at its own tree trunk, then pointed at the large red garment in Arbor's hand, and it let out an earth-shattering shriek. "Masta, you want you to wear this?" Cough. Emolien couldn't resist coughing softly. "Jojo, holy child me, Yin is walking towards our tent." "Okay, hurry and leave." Arbor shook the small red doo-doo on his body and helped Chocho wrap it around the tree trunk. He patted its head and said with satisfaction, "Looks good. You earned Chocho. This was originally meant for my child. I'll let you wear it first." "Child?" Everyone couldn't resist looking at her simultaneously. It turned out that Sir Jojo had already thought this far ahead. Was she already secretly sewing children's clothes? Arbor's little hand paused. He raised his hand expressionlessly and patted Chocho's little head. "All right, you're a boy. You have to be strong. Don't make a scene and roll around on the ground." Chocho lowered his head and looked at his little red Dudu, although the whites of her eyes were covered. What about the crimson red undergarment? Would it be too much? It was a mistake, but this should have been personally made by Master, right? Looking at the crooked stitches and the black lotus embroidered on it, it was obvious that this was the Master's signature work. It's better to wear it. I don't want to destroy Master's heart. Emolien held the little fellow's hand as they stepped out of Paradise Planet and back into the tent. She reached out and hugged her, rubbing her head against the top of her head. Jojo, you might laugh at me if I tell you. The little guy lowered his head and rubbed his toes on the ground. I feel like I missed out on too many things in the past. In this lifetime, I want to experience all of my life's experiences. I don't want to leave behind any regrets. Okay. Emolien reached out and cupped her little face. He lowered his head and gazed deeply at her, smiling slightly. You definitely won't miss out on anything again. Crown Prince, Crown Princess. The moment Holy Sunmi Yin lifted the curtain, he saw the two of them looking at each other like they were abusing dogs. He was immediately stuffed with a mouthful of dog food, feeling stifled and having a heart attack. Chapter 3066. It was him who was blind. He came in for no reason to make his presence known, but in the end, he was forcefully stuffed with dog food. Ah poo poo poo. Holy Sunmi Yin kept a straight face and tried his best to keep a straight face as he said aloofly, "The two of you, I have something important to discuss with you. Please come out." After saying that, Holy Sunmi Yin turned around and walked out, slamming down the tent's curtain with a crash. Xiao Xiao raised her head and looked at her husband. What happened to him? The old illness of a century-old, lonely old man flared up. Crown Prince Imo whispered into her ear before sneaking a kiss on her small cheek with a smile. He then pulled her small hand and walked out of the tent. Xiao Xiao, when we return to the capital, it will be almost time for the wedding. What present do you want? Sir Jojo reached out and gently placed her hands on his cheeks. She looked at him with shining eyes and said, "How about a little Lian who looks exactly like you?" Ha ha! Prince Imo guffawed. Holy Sunmi Yin, who was sitting in the tent next door, could hear the two's hearty laughter. He pursed his lips and muttered, laughing for no reason. Duan Yu sat across from Holy Sunmi Yin with a teacup in his hand and asked with a grin, "Is Lord Holy Sun jealous?" "Why would I be jealous?" Holy Sunmi Yin irritably retorted. When he looked up and saw Mo Lien walking in with Arbor in her arms, he coughed and said, "All right, since everyone is here, let's talk business. It's not a good idea for us to keep waiting here. I plan to organize a few people and head to the mouth of Dukhan River to search for the others. What do you guys think?" "I have no objections," Mu Xingchen said aloofly. "I also have no objections." Duan Yu shrugged. "Right now, let's try to piece together a list of the people who aren't present and see how many people we need to search for. There's no need to search for my little companions." Arbor said aloofly, "I've already contacted them. They'll arrive around this evening." Holy Sunmi Yin turned to glance at her and nodded. "Then we don't need to care about the people from Seacombe Planet. The people from Fire Smelting City and Ice Sealed City were also settled. The rest of you, take a look and see how many of your companions are not here yet." Everyone is talking at once. Holy Sunmi Yin draws up a list of names. When he is done, he puts down the pen and blows the ink on the paper dry. According to the list, there's still more than 10 people from Flying Sword Academy, Blue Ocean Academy, and Hong Mansion Academy who haven't arrived yet. In addition, Mu Rochuan of the Mu family is still missing. "Miss Jojo, are you going to look for Miss Mu?" Arbor glanced at Holy Sunmi Yin coldly. "The world is so big. Where can you find her? The matters of the Mu family have nothing to do with me. Don't look for me." This Her Holy Sun really touched a sore spot. Emolien glanced at him dryly. "Holy Sun, we aren't even on the same team. Where is young Master Mu?" Holy Sunmi Yin looked at Mu Xingchen again. Mu Xingchen stealthily peeked at Arbor as if he wanted to say something. "Eldest brother, go look for her if you want. No need to look at me," Arbor said aloofly. "Lien and I will not participate in the search and rescue." After saying that, he hopped down from Emolyen's lap and stomped out with his back straight, slamming the curtain behind him. Mu Xingchen sighed. He also knew that the knot between Jojo and the Mu family couldn't be resolved so quickly. Everything could only be done slowly. I'll participate, Mu Xingqian said. Chapter 3067. Lady Jojo returned to her tent, kicked off her shoes, and climbed onto the soft couch. She sat there cross-legged, unmoving like a mountain. Jojo, Yin, lifted the curtain, walked in, and sat down next to her. Jojo, are you unhappy? No. Are you angry with Big Brother? I'm not angry with him. Arbor sat up straight, looking at Yin with a straight face. I know. He's lived with that mother and daughter since he was young. It's impossible for him to change his mind so quickly. Moreover, Arbor said mildly, he was raised by that woman. After so many years together, he should have some feelings for her. That he can't let go of his sister shows that my big brother values relationships. Why should I blame him? Yin leaned closer to her and reached out to pull her into his arms. My Jojo is so sensible. Arbor tilted her head and glanced at him. She couldn't help but secretly find it funny. This man always used the tone of coaxing a child to coax her. Since you're not angry, let's find Big Brother for a meal later. Although Big Brother promised Holy Sun to go with her to search and rescue at Duchun River, I'm sure he's feeling uneasy right now. He's worried that you're angry. Arbor put down her two short legs and nodded. Yin chuckled and hugged her onto his lap. Jojo is so obedient. Holy Sun Yin watched as Arbor and Yin left after sitting for a while. He couldn't help but turn to look at the others helplessly. Then what does everyone say? I think we should split into 3 teams and concentrate on searching for them once. It'll be good if we can find them. If we can't, we'll rest for a day after returning and then set off. Okay. No one had any objections and nodded in agreement. Eldest young master, why hasn't your second young master arrived yet? Holy Sun turned to look at eldest Qin and asked with a puzzled expression. Omega Kitoku's cultivation was one of the more prominent ones among the group. At this moment, even the few seniors from the royal school, such as Dao and Turnbull, had already arrived at the campsite. It would be unreasonable if they did not see the Omega Kitoku. Duan Yu involuntarily snorted when he heard this. Second young master? There's no need to wait. Eldest young, Sir Qin's gaze swept over Duan Yu as he asked in confusion. Has your Highness Prince Chun met my younger brother before? Not only have we seen them, but we've also chased them away. Everyone looked hesitant. Your good little brother rushed to the Red River Canyon before us and caught Jojo. Duan Yu said apathetically. If we hadn't chased after them, perhaps Jojo would still be suffering in your younger brother's hands right now. How is that possible? Qin Xian could not help being shocked. Is what you said true? Absolutely true, absolutely not false. Duan Yu coldly replied. Second young master's actions truly make one's hair stand on end. Eldest young Sir Qin, as his biological older brother, you still need to properly discipline him in the future. Qin Xian was at a loss for words, and he did not know how to respond. Seeing Duan Yu stand up, Qin Xian also stood up and cupped his hands. Apologies, Your Highness. I didn't know there was such a thing. Then does Your Highness know where my younger brother went? Duan Yu turned around, and his pair of chilly peach blossom eyes gazed deeply at Qin Xian. He escaped using a transportation talisman matrix. Eldest young sir, you really need to restrain your younger brother's actions. Mu Xingqian also said indignantly. Chapter 3068. If it weren't for Prince Mo and His Highness Prince Chun arriving in time, who knows what would have happened? Apologies. Qin Xian awkwardly glanced at Duan Yu and Mu Xingqian. I will definitely explain this matter clearly to him. Duan Yu parted the curtain with one hand. When he bent down to leave, he glanced back at eldest young Sir Qin with a spurious smile. How confident do you think he is in blocking Yin and me by himself? Next time, you might not even have the chance to see him again. Duan Yu meaningfully glanced at Qin Xian before tossing the curtain aside and swaggering off. Qin Xian felt a chill run down his spine. In other words, did Duan Yu hold back a bit this time? Otherwise, perhaps his second brother wouldn't even have the chance to escape using the transportation talisman matrix? When he thought of this, Qin Xian couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He stood up and cupped his hands at the Holy Sun. Apologies, Holy Sun. Our Qin estate won't be participating in this operation. The Holy Sun nodded. Knowing that he was in a hurry to return and contact his second young sir, he tactfully didn't insist on eldest young Sir Qin staying behind to participate in the search and rescue. Then let's split into teams. The Holy Sun said to everyone present, "We'll set off early tomorrow morning." Okay. At 10 o'clock in the evening, just as the little Stoic said, Qi Xuanxuan's group, Doya, Hidden Flower, and Situ all arrived at the campsite. Aside from them, several students from Blue Ocean Academy and Flying Sword Academy also came. Madame Goen limped over with the support of the robust man, Huang Yang. Her complexion was still a bit pale, probably because she suffered a minor injury in the Du Chunjiang. It's good that everyone is fine. The saint looked at the crowd that had just arrived and nodded. Go wash up first and rest for a while. Come out for a meal later. Thank you. Madame Goen was about to cry. She felt that she was simply unlucky. After drifting in the Du Chunjiang for so long, she was about to rot and stink from soaking. Originally, as a level 12 great spiritual master, it wasn't a problem for her to not eat for several days. But now, she urgently needed to replenish her energy and strength. It was truly too bitter. Jojo, you've soaked me so much that I'm turning green. Qi Xianxian jogged over and pulled her hand. Luckily, we have water, meat, and steamed buns in our inner world. At least I won't starve myself. Arbor couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He looked at her in amusement. No wonder you haven't lost weight. Bubbles even gained weight. What? Did I gain weight again? Qi Xianxian quickly pinched her cheeks and exclaimed, I'm almost catching up to Fatty. All right, go wash up first. You're stinking and you're still holding on to Jojo. Everyone was noisy as they each found an empty tent and went to take care of themselves. Little junior sister, let's talk after I clean it up. Liang Qingqing was also disgusted by herself. She quickly waved at Jojo and went into the tent. Xiaomu swept her gaze over them, and when she saw that everyone was present, she relaxed. Now, she wasn't even bothered by how everyone could recognize her at a glance. In any case, she knew that no matter what she changed into, she would still be recognized at a glance by people with her stoic face. Jojo, eldest young Sir Qin, slowly walked towards her and nodded slightly at Emolian. Let's talk, okay? Chapter 3069. Arbor nodded. She didn't have much resistance towards Qin Xian. The little fellow looked up at Emolian, who nodded slightly at her. Go on. The two circled around the crowd and strolled to the cliff behind the tent area. Lady Qiao Qiao jumped onto a crimson-red rock at the edge of the cliff. She looked at the vast expanse of rock in the distance. There was only a meandering stream of crimson water in the narrow canyon. It flowed along the shallow ditch and gradually extended into the distance. Apologies. It's not your fault. You become like this? Is it because of him? Arbor gazed into the distance and sighed softly. Sort of. Qin Xian glanced at her. Jojo, did something happen between you and Xian that we don't know about? No. Arbor turned to meet his eyes. Nothing happened. I can't give him any emotional response. If possible, she wanted to stay far away from this person for the rest of her life. It would be best if they never met or had any contact with each other. I killed his doppelganger. Your father sent someone to kill me and beat me to the point of vomiting blood. Even if we're even now, I won't continue to pursue the matter. Second young master, and I will go our separate ways. Whatever we were in the past will remain the same in the future. We will always be strangers. This identity will never change. Eldest young Master Qin gazed deeply at her. Xiao Qiao, do you know that sometimes your heart is scarily colder than anyone else's? I just don't want to have too many inexplicable connections with irrelevant people. In this life, you are you, and I am me. Wasn't it good to be strangers and not owe each other anything? The night wind blew through her hair. She was a small person standing on the tall, cold, red rock, looking into the distance at the valley below. In the depths of his eyes, there was a coldness that could not be melted, as well as indifferent and emotionless. I will have a good talk with second younger brother. A stream of water shot out of Arbor's hand and turned into an ice arrow in the blink of an eye. It landed on the opposite rock with a whoosh. She looked at the rock that was so big that two people couldn't even wrap their arms around it. It suddenly crumbled into powder in front of her. Xiao Mu's lips curled up. Things are different now. Just because it was like that in the past doesn't mean that it will be like that in the future. We're strangers to begin with, so there's no need to act like we're close. I hope that the next time we meet, second young master will turn a blind eye to me. That will be the greatest wish of my life. They were no longer related to each other. These 4 words sounded simple, but it was heart-wrenching to hear them. Night fell. A cold wind blew across a lonely mountain range. A small flame lit up in front of Qin Xian. On the communication jade talisman in her hand, faint words were floating. Xian, a man in plain clothes with long hair draped over his shoulders and a face so gentle that it was almost impossible to tell if he was a man or a woman, slowly walked towards him. Her palm-sized face, without heavy makeup, was abnormally pale. Why did you choose to retreat? Qin Xian coldly curled the corners of her lips and looked down at that person. This time, I want to use my patience to influence her. There was no use in forcing her. That little fellow was a tough nut to crack. Forcing her would only result in a life and death struggle, with both sides suffering losses. It wouldn't benefit him at all. Have nothing to do with you? Young Master Omega Kotoku's lips curled into a faint sneer. Don't even think about it. Chapter 3070. Wow, today's weather is finally clearing up. As soon as Qi Xianxian lifted the tent flap, she stretched lazily and called out to the little fatty in the distance. Little fatty, what are you busy with? The little fatty turned around in front of the propped-up pot with a spatula in his hand. He waved it at them. Hey, this is the nourishing porridge I cooked early in the morning. It's done, so you can come over and eat. I've been floating on Duchun River for 2 days. It really makes me want to throw up every day. It's great to have hot porridge to eat. Qi Xianxian quickly walked up and took out a small bowl with a grin. Where are Jojo and the others? They haven't woken up yet? They woke up early. They went to scout nearby. Cough. Qi Xianxian almost choked on the hot porridge. What time? No, they just went to observe the terrain nearby. When the little fatty looked up and saw Liang, Qingqing, and the others coming out of their tents one after another, he quickly greeted them enthusiastically. Miss Qingqing, Brother Situ, come and eat porridge. I cook quite a lot. Little fatty, you're truly becoming more virtuous. Qi Xianxian carelessly touched little fatty's chubby face, causing little fatty's face to turn red. When Arbor returned, she saw everyone eating happily around the pot. Her eyes brightened, and she quickly ran to their side. When Qi Xianxian and the others saw the little stoic returning, they hastily made room for her. Jojo, what are we doing today? Nothing. We're just resting in the camp. That's great. Situ, he couldn't resist ridiculing. Soaking on Duchun River is unbearable. Resting for a day is also good. All right, why were you guys in the river for so long? When Arbor said this, she felt that something was amiss. Because she was especially fast in the river and could travel more than 500 kilometers in a day, she ran far away by herself, and Lian, Duanyu, and the others tore open the void to chase after her. Both of these situations were too abnormal. On the other hand, Qi Xianxian, Situ Yi, and the others drifted over at normal speed. Hey, don't mention it. Speaking of this, the little fatty couldn't help but want to complain. We can't even fucking differentiate between north, south, east, and west in the river. Who knows if we drifted in the wrong direction in the beginning. Fortunately, we managed to return safely. Situ E smiled and said, By the way, Jojo, are you guys early? How long have you been here? Arbor blinked. He came a day or 2 earlier than you. She didn't want to hurt them, so she arrived at Shaoli village early in the morning of the 2nd day of drifting. Jojo, where are Prince Mo and Prince Chen? They went to a further place to explore. The little fellow pursed her lips. I felt bored, so I came back first. Giant rocks were everywhere, and they were either black or crimson. How could Xiao Mu have the patience to scout the path? In any case, there was Shi-chan accompanying the two of them to tinker with the path, so she did not need Sir Qiao Qiao's assistance from the side. Jojo, Qi Xianxian held her little hand and said with a smile, "When we were soaking in the river, I thought I would never see you again. How could that be?" Arbor involuntarily cast her a glance. "You're full of nonsense." Don't tell me. When we were soaking in the boundless water, I also felt guilty," Liang Qingqing said with a chuckle. Before she could finish speaking, they heard a loud roar in the distance. Everyone's faces froze when they heard the sound, and they stood up in unison. They saw smoke and dust billowing over from the distance. Chapter 3071. Xiao Mu hastily stood taller, and she saw the two clumsy giant bears charging towards the campsite while leaving a deep pit in their wake, one higher than the other, lower than the other. Many people were startled by this boorish roar and hastily ran out of their tents. They couldn't help but be shocked when they saw it. One of the bears with brown fur flattened a tent with a stomp. It stomped over the dilapidated tent and swung its fan-sized paw forcefully, immediately sending the slowest runner flying. That runner spat out a mouthful of blood and crashed into a large tree nearby. He directly rolled to the ground and immediately lost consciousness. Arbor's eyes widened slightly. Where did these two bears come from? Judging from their combat strength, they're at least level 10 spirit beasts. Situi creased his brows. A level 10 spirit beast combat strength couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as a level 10 great spiritual master. To put it bluntly, 2 level 10 great spiritual masters might not even be able to kill a level 10 spirit beast. This kind of disparity was mainly due to the fact that spirit beasts were more powerful. Prepare for battle. Everyone gathered forward one after another, each of them summoning their own weapons from their own consciousness, ready for battle. Go! Lady Jojo swung her small arms and calmly stood on a rock. She gazed at her little companions, and after she gave the order, they all executed their movement techniques and flew over. The Seacone Planet Battle Team was very experienced in group battles. After charging over, they each took up their respective positions. Duan Muqing used the power of his wooden vines to wrap around one of the giant bear's thick legs. Little fatty Lu Yu and the others then followed suit and freely sent their spiritual energy towards the giant bear. Qi Xianxian stayed behind to launch a sneak attack. As she fought, she turned her head and saw the little stoic expressionlessly standing far away from them, calmly observing the situation. She couldn't resist covering her face and laughing involuntarily the stoic face. This swindler, when he ordered go just now, it turned out that he wanted them to go since the Seacone Planet Battle Team went up to take on one of the bears. Situ E and the others went to attack the other one. Fire-smelting city and ice-sealed city added up to more than 10 people. Dealing with a black bear was a simple matter. Yushio rushed over with a stream of fire. Everyone rushed forward in a flurry, and all kinds of spiritual energy smashed towards the unlucky bear's body. The big bear arched its body and couldn't help but bear the attacks of the crowd. There was a slight, pained expression on its face. "Stop!" The little stoic's icy voice abruptly rang out. As a result, it was as if someone had pressed the pause button. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to look in her direction with a blank expression. The little fellow had short arms and legs, so everyone had to look down to see her. The little stoic's face was expressionless as she pattered towards them with small steps. Chen Baojia and the others, who had been chased by the two bears, were now sitting on the ground, panting heavily. Seeing Situ E and the others stop, Chen Baojia couldn't help but cry out unwillingly, "Why did you stop? Kill them quickly. Who knows how many people in our team have been harmed by these two damned bears." However, no one paid attention to her. Everyone dispersed to the sides in an orderly manner, opening up a path that could allow the short legs to pass through. Sir Jojo stood in front of that black bear. Chapter 3072. Standing in front of this large and burly bear, this tiny person was simply like a small bean sprout fluttering in the wind. She was so frail that she was pitiful. The little fellow raised her small hand and expressionlessly patted the bear's thick thigh. Everyone couldn't help but look at her with a dark expression. They couldn't understand this child's actions. Previously, she was the one who told them to attack, and now, she was also the one who told them to stop. Jojo's thoughts seemed to be a bit hard to guess. The blue spirit snake emperor that was coiled around the little fellow's hand and playing dead all day suddenly moved. It slightly raised its small snake head and bared its fangs at the large bear in front of it. This blue spirit snake emperor was a peak-level spirit beast. Any beast below a divine beast could only crawl in front of it. When the bear saw such a thin and frail little snake, its hair stood on end in fright. It stealthily retreated a step, and its body even arched. The little stoic expressionlessly walked forward a few more steps. Duanmu Qing was about to grab her small hand and indicate for her not to come too close. After all, this little fellow was currently a weakling. The little stoic waved her hand at him and pattered to the large bear's feet. She raised her small head and hooked her small hand at it. Let me take a look at its injuries. That large bear had developed intelligence and could naturally understand her words. When it heard her, it couldn't help but be dumbfounded, and its eyes misted over. It obediently prostrated its enormous body. Everyone focused their eyes and finally saw that this large bear was hugging a small bear cub. This small bear cub looked like it was on its last breath. It was very small, not even as big as a toddler. Arbor carried it over and gently laid it flat on the ground. Qi Xianxian and the others widened their eyes in shock and then looked down at their hands. Fuck! Just now, they actually shamelessly attacked a female bear that was hugging a cub. Qi Xianxian and the others all glanced at the little stoic resentfully. The stoic said expressionlessly, "I also didn't notice at the beginning. The enemy attacked our camp. Don't tell me we should be polite to them." The little stoic said dryly, "We deserve to be beaten up." Everyone was speechless. They destroyed a few of our tents. Now that we've beaten them up, we're even. Everyone was speechless. Why did he suddenly feel that what the little stoic said made a lot of sense? Although the little stoic was talking to them, her movements weren't weak at all. This little bear had more than a dozen very serious spiritual injuries on its body. Both of its legs were broken, and its nose was twitching. It looked somewhat pitiful. After the little stoic finished bandaging it, she fed it a healing medicine and a small bottle of nutrient solution before turning to look at Chun Baojia and the others who were sitting paralyzed on the side. "You guys did it?" Chun Baojia was obviously choked by this question. Looking at the little stoic's pitch-black, icy eyes, a trace of anger involuntarily surfaced in his heart. "So what if we did it? Who doesn't capture spirit beasts like this?" Chun Baojia stiffened her neck and scoffed. "You speak as if those spirit beasts around you followed you here of their own accord, and you've never captured them before." The little stoic blinked and nodded apathetically at her. She carried the small bear cub to the large bear's feet and patted its thick thigh. Only then did she turn around and say to Qi Xianxian and the others, "Let's go." "Hey, where are you guys going?" Chapter 3073. Zhongli Jiwei, who was sitting paralyzed next to Chen Baojia, couldn't help but become anxious when she saw that the little stoic was about to leave with Duanmu Qing, Hidden Flower, and the others. What kind of joke was this? Their current combat strength simply wasn't enough to continue fighting with the two large bears. If the little stoic led them all away, then how are they going to fight with the bears later? Most of them were below level 10 spiritual cultivators. For example, the person running at the very back just now was merely a level 7 spiritual cultivator. He was sent flying by a bear with a single slap, and he still hadn't woken up from his coma. Arbor glanced at them coldly and couldn't be bothered to continue speaking to them. He turned around and pattered away. How could Qi Xianxian and the others continue to stay here after Arbor left? They hastily left with Sir Jojo. "Hey, wait. You guys." The Flying Sword Academy students couldn't help but become anxious. Judging from the little stoic's appearance, she really didn't seem to be joking. If they left like this and left them here, what good would come out of it if they were attacked by the bears a few times? You want to capture someone else's child, so their parents will hunt you down. Isn't this a very normal thing? Arbor glanced back at them aloofly and said coldly, "It's inconvenient for us to intervene in personal grudges. You guys can do as you please. Remember not to hit our tent. If you flatten my tent, don't blame me for being merciless." Arbor coldly threw down this sentence and left. Everyone's mouths involuntarily twitched when they heard this, and they all looked at the little stoic who turned around to leave. What did this child say? This logical thinking cough was truly unconventional and very different from the rest. But for some reason, Situ, E, and the others actually felt that what their little junior sister said was very reasonable. They really couldn't find a single mistake, was it, because they were led astray by the little stoic's bizarre thinking? Chun Baojia, Zhongli Jiwei, and the others were even more flabbergasted and fumed with anger. The little stoic meant that they couldn't even compare to a lousy tent. How could she say that? Therefore, she felt that speaking with this stoic face really required a very strong psychological endurance. Otherwise, she would most likely be angered to death. Arbor went into the tent to make pills. He threw out a soundproof talisman to block out the sounds outside. Who cared what was going on outside? What did it have to do with her? Chun Baojia, Zhongli Jiwei, and the others were really unlucky. The two big bears consciously didn't touch any of the tents, but they kept chasing after Chun Baojia and Zhongli Jiwei. Both sides fought fiercely until the Holy Sun led a group of people back for lunch. Only then did they stop and call it a day. The two big bears were both intelligent. When they saw so many people returning to the camp, how could they continue to stay here? He hurriedly roared, and the two big bears, one male and one female, carried their babies and ran away. At this time, Chun Baojia, Zhongli Jiwei, and the others had already been beaten black and blue by Dashion. Even their parents couldn't recognize them. One of Chun Baojia's arms was even broken, and half of it was hanging in front of her chest. She groaned and complained incessantly. Zhongli Jiwei was even more unlucky. Both of her eyes were bruised, half of her face was swollen, and her eyes were bloodshot. She looked very unlucky. Chapter 3074. Damn it. If that damn blind bear slap had been a little more ruthless, her head would have been smacked off. There was simply no justice in this world. Why did they have to be so miserable and miserable? Chun Baojia and Zhongli Jiwei sat paralyzed on the ground, gasping for breath. When they saw Holy Sun Mi Yin, they couldn't help but start crying. "Sir Holy Sun, you have to uphold justice for us. How can there be such a narrow-minded, vicious, and treacherous person in our team? We can't continue traveling together with this kind of person. If this continues, we'll all be killed by her sooner or later." Zhongli Jiwei shrieked. She must be chased out of the team. Right, chased out of the team. Immediately chased out of the team. The people who were also ravaged to the point that their parents couldn't recognize them also clamored along with Zhongli Jiwei and Chun Baojia, agreeing with their views. Originally, they didn't have much enmity toward the little stoic, but after coming into contact with her today, they felt like their hearts and lungs were about to explode from anger. This person could actually look on helplessly as the blind bear tortured them like this. She clearly had the strength to save them, but she didn't do anything. Not only did she not do anything, but she even instigated her companions not to do anything. What kind of godly thinking was this? Could it be that your conscience doesn't hurt at all by doing this? What happened? Holy Sun Mi Yin had just returned, so he naturally didn't know what was going on. Seeing the miserable state of Zhongli Jiwei and Chun Baojia's group, some compassion and sympathy arose in his heart. God loves the world. The Holy Sun stretched out his hands, revealing a compassionate expression of a Holy Father. What exactly happened? Since we're a team now, let's head to the Sun Moon Temple together for practical training. Then if there's something within my power, I'll do my best to help everyone. Sir Holy Sun. Chun Baojia immediately became spirited when she heard this. She wailed dryly as she scrambled to the front of the holy sun, hugged his leg, and continued to bawl. Look at us. Isn't it miserable? Isn't it pitiful? It's all because of that stoic face. It's all because of her. Because of her. Arbor opened the curtain and walked out of the tent, just in time to hear Chun Baojia's demonic voice. Who did she hurt? She beat them up? Did she summon the bear? How did she suddenly become the culprit? She must be kicked out of our team immediately. Kicked out of the team? Sir Jojo couldn't help but snort in disdain. This group of people was really whimsical. She calmly walked over and stood in front of Holy Sun Mi-yin. She said coldly, "Who wants to kick me out of the team?" "Me," Zhongli Jiwei screamed. She pointed at the wound on her face and angrily roared. "Look at what I've become. You woman, you. Hey, why are you being so loud? Who's deaf? Can't you speak properly?" Qi Xianxian interrupted her in annoyance. You, Lord Holy Sun," Zhongli Jiwei shouted angrily. "I feel ashamed to have such a teammate." "Who's your teammate?" Arbor tilted his head and glanced at her with disdain. "Tell them who we are." Qi Xianxian, Lu Yu, and the others looked at each other. They pulled out a dagger at the same time, with 5 large words engraved on the hilt. Seekong Planet Battle Team was vivid in their minds. Everyone's lips involuntarily twitched. Chapter 3075. Fuck, it turned out that they already had a battle team prepared for them. Arbor also leisurely pulled out a similar dagger from his waist and flashed it in front of everyone. "Is there something wrong with your head? Who's in the same battle team as you?" "Haha, we're just going the same way. Don't think too much." Little Fatty put away the dagger with a chuckle. Zhongli Jiwei's face flushed red. Little Fatty's words made it seem like she, Zhongli Jiwei, was flattering herself and insisted on being in the same team as them. Seekong Planet Battle Team looked down on people like them. Was that what he meant? Liang Qingqing couldn't help but find it funny. Little junior sister was really so interesting wherever she went. She actually made a small battle team of her own. Sir Jojo expressionlessly looked at Zhongli Jiwei, whose face was as red as pig liver sauce. "Do you have any other questions?" Zhongli Jiwei choked on her breath and couldn't speak for a long time. Beside her, Qin Baojia couldn't help but say angrily, "Since we're all in the same team now, it's wrong for you to ignore the life and death of your teammates. You guys went to kill other people's children and ended up being hunted down by their adults. What does this have to do with me?" Sir Jojo had a flabbergasted expression. She really couldn't figure it out. Could it be that these people weren't prepared to be killed by other people's parents before they killed other people's children? What were these people thinking? They were allowed to kill others, but others couldn't find trouble with them? It didn't make sense at all. Sir Jojo looked at them as if they were weirdos and shook his head. It's more appropriate to treat people with brain disease as soon as possible. The later the stage, the harder it is to treat. The main treatment method can be acupuncture or medication. It requires 1 to 5 courses of treatment and lasts for half a year. Situ, he really couldn't hold it in. As he burst out laughing, he nodded apologetically at everyone and coughed lightly. "My apologies." He freaking couldn't hold in. Sir Jojo was seriously a bit too funny. Everyone felt like they were talking to a chicken talking to a duck. Weren't they talking about how they shouldn't leave their teammates in the lurch? Why is his stoic face pulling a stunt like he's actually talking about a brain disease? He's even making it sound so serious, as if this group of people all have an incurable disease. Qin Baojia was so angry that her face turned red. She raised her nose slightly and panted heavily. Yu, she racked her brains, but couldn't find a word to describe this stoic face with a vile attitude. Arbor looked at her indifferently. "Your left hand is fractured, and there are internal injuries in your chest and abdomen. If you don't treat them properly, I'm afraid it will affect the use of that arm in the future. I noticed that your complexion is abnormally flushed. It should be due to the accumulation of lung qi and extreme liver fire." She still had to pay attention to adjusting her state of mind to avoid excessive anger that would cause her heart to be out of tune. If it was serious, it could even affect her menstrual cycle. If your period doesn't come properly, it will affect your fertility in the future, and it will also affect your life as a couple. It's very inappropriate. Cough, cough, cough. This time, even the saint could not help but have a strange expression on his face as his cheeks twitched slightly. If one looked closely, they could see that the veins on the saint's forehead were throbbing slightly. He silently glanced at the little stoic and saw that her expression was very serious. She didn't look like she was teasing him at all. It indeed looked like she was dispelling a patient's doubts out of a doctor's heart. You can wait for me today. 0-point explosion is even better. I'm still in the middle of preparing the manuscript. It's too rushed. I have to prepare for the new year, and I'm still being dragged by others to chat about daily life. How miserable. Chapter 3076. However, Chun Baojia was so angry that her fingers trembled. She kept pointing at Arbor and saying, "You," for a long time before finally collapsing to the ground with a thump. She was so angry that her nose was bleeding. The little stoic shook her head. "Your internal heat is too strong. You have to pay attention to adjusting your emotions." The ancient said that one should not show one's emotions on their faces. This is not completely an exaggeration. It does have some health purposes. When dealing with matters, one must guard against arrogance and impatience. One must guard against anger and depression. Otherwise, it will be extremely bad for one's body. The little stoic said indifferently, "You have to be indifferent in everything you do. Like me, I'm indifferent normally and indifferent when I'm angry. If I'm indifferent in everything I do, I will definitely live a long, long life." Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, Qi Xian squatted to the side and slapped her thigh in wild laughter. Her laughter was like a freaking floodgate being opened, and the laughter around her rose and fell in picturesque disorder. Fuck, wasn't this stoic face too funny? She even freaking imitated her indifference. Indifferent facial paralysis, indifferent expressionless, and indifferent to the point that birds could fly. It just so happened that Lian, Duan Yu, and He Chin returned. When they saw everyone laughing like idiots, they couldn't help but be baffled. Meanwhile, the tiny and expressionless Sir Jojo who was standing there was also perplexed. It was simply baffling. She was clearly explaining some medical principles to them, and reminding that Miss Chun not to always be angry. Anger was especially bad for women. Why the heck were they all laughing so exaggeratedly? What was so funny about this? Sir Jojo expressed that he completely didn't understand other people's logical thinking. Lian saw his little wifey standing there and looking at everyone expressionlessly. She was clearly out of tune with the surrounding people who were laughing like idiots. He couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He quickly walked over and pulled the little fellow to the side. "What's wrong?" He knew that she would have a questioning expression even if he asked. The little fellow clearly didn't understand what others were laughing at. The way of medicine isn't a joke. Laughing indiscriminately, you don't know how to laugh blindly. The little fellow flicked her sleeves angrily and turned to leave with a huff. Duan Yu couldn't help but be speechless. After sweeping his gaze around, he picked up the little fatty and asked, "What happened?" Little fatty was already out of breath from laughing. Hearing this, he hurriedly held back his laughter and repeated what had just happened word by word. In the end, he even said, "Jojo always said that Miss Chin's internal heat is strong and her liver is burning." Who would have known that Miss Chun was angered to this extent by her? She even taught others to be indifferent. Qi Xian smiled as she squatted on the ground. "Learn from her." "Ha, I can't take it anymore. Let me laugh for a while more." Ma Ancient smiled and said, I love the way my little Jojo infuriates people to death. I'm going to check on my Qiao. She's so cute." Yin rolled her eyes at him, but did not chase after him. Instead, she walked up to the Holy Sun, whose eyebrows were twitching, and said, "I think it's better if we leave early tomorrow morning." Sir Holy Sun was still in a daze from the little stoic's indifference, and had yet to recover his wits. When he heard this, he only nodded indifferently without any ripples in his emotions from the looks of it. "The weather won't be too good tomorrow. Lien said. The road ahead is filled with low-lying valleys. The Rocky Mountains on both sides are extremely steep, and there's a lot of soil piled up on top. Chapter 3077. If the rain is heavy, it might cause a landslide. It would be bad if the road is blocked. Moreover, this is still a no-fly zone. It won't do us any good if we leave too late. Hearing this, Holy Sun Yin nodded seriously. The Crown Prince's words are very reasonable. We will go to do Chunjiang this afternoon and see if there are any others who are left behind. After a night's rest, we will set off early in the morning tomorrow. Seeing that he had listened, Yin nodded and turned to walk back to his tent. With Holy Sun Yin leading the search and rescue operation in the afternoon, there shouldn't be much of a problem. After Yin entered the tent, he saw Lord Jojo leaning against a soft tiger skin couch. She was holding a jar of dried fruit and chewing it with her cheeks puffed up. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was sitting leisurely on a short table, holding a cup of tea in his hand. Seeing him enter, he blinked and smiled. You've talked to Mayan? Yin nodded. We'll leave early in the morning tomorrow. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at the little girl suggestively. Yin looked over and saw that the little girl was silent and continued chewing on the dried fruit. His little girl was angry and wanted to eat something good to cool down. When she was angry, Prince Imo found it funny, but he didn't dare to laugh out loud. He only coughed lightly and said, Jojo, when your husband followed them to explore nearby, I saw a flower growing on a rock. I thought it looked very pretty, so I plucked it and gave it to you. Lord Jojo turned his little head to look at him. Where's the flower? Ma Shurchin put down her teacup and rolled her eyes. Forget it. There's a giant python coiled behind that flower. I've waited for 200 years for this flower in the stone to bloom, but you snatched it away. Prince Imo took out a small flower glowing with white light from his inner world and handed it to Arbor. It's pretty, my wife. Lord Jojo quickly nodded and carefully took the flower in the stone from his hands. His gloomy anger was swept away, and he beamed. Ball, planted from Master. This flower in the stone was really good stuff. She wondered if she could get Chiochio to breed it. They would be of great use if they were reproduced. When the time came, he could grind one stalk into powder and concoct a multi-purpose health pill. As long as the person didn't die on the spot, even if they were paralyzed for more than 10 years after taking it, they would slowly recover. Jojo finally smiled. Just now, Peach Blossom said that the flower in the stone was guarded by a guardian beast. Did you fight with it? You didn't. Prince Imo looked at his wife innocently. How can my husband do such a thing? My husband stole its flower, so naturally he wouldn't harm its life. Am I right, Jojo? The little fellow nodded his head in a serious manner, feeling that his husband was very reliable. Duan Yu, who had just entered through the curtain, happened to hear Yin's self-praising words. He couldn't resist rolling his eyes at the sky as he said, he didn't hit the other party. He merely revealed his black fire, which scared that snake into cowering and immediately slipping away. The little stoic gazed at them expressionlessly. Forget it, don't blame anyone. Based on her understanding of them, it was most likely that the unlucky snake wasn't scared away by Yin. It was definitely scared away by the three of them, working together. Prince Mo couldn't resist bursting into laughter. What nonsense are you babbling about? We're all civilized people, so we naturally wouldn't do that kind of outrageous thing. Duan Yu rolled his eyes. Chapter 3078. This time, even the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal could not bear to continue listening to this fellow's boasting. He asked with a dark expression, Did you tell them? Yin replied with an, Oh, before flipping open the curtain and walking outside. I'll go call them all over. Before long, Sir Jojo's tent was filled with people. Qi Xian and Liang Qingqing squeezed together with Sir Jojo. Meanwhile, Situ Yi and the others sat as much as they could and could only stand for the time being if they could not. We will set off early in the morning tomorrow. The path at the canyon is not easy to walk on. With this weather, It will probably start raining in the afternoon. Emolien said the path ahead is very narrow, and the Rocky Mountains on both sides form a crevice with that path. I suspect that someone will set up an ambush here. Situ, E, and the others were involuntarily taken aback. What? Who would be so bold as to ambush us there? Duanmu Qing said, the Crown Prince means that the heavenly fate will set up an ambush on that path to outflank us. Fuck, can't the heavenly fate just give a rest? What is the heavenly fate trying to do? It's enough to make a move in Du Chunjiang. He still won't let us off now? Those zombie crocodiles in Du Chunjiang are only the appetizer. The main show is yet to come. Duan, you said aloofly, the most important thing is that everyone needs to mentally prepare themselves and nip the problem in the bud. Tomorrow's path will probably be more difficult. Moreover, this place is still in no-fly mode, so we must be more careful, Prince Mo added. Sir Jojo sat there expressionlessly and took out a dried fruit to continue chewing without saying a word. Everyone turned to look and almost burst out laughing. This child had a don't talk to me expression on her stoic face. If it weren't for her mouth continuously chewing, she would truly look like a small jade sculpture. She sat on the soft couch and calmly looked at them like this. Situ immediately self-reflected and quickly apologized to the little girl. Jojo, it was Senior Brother's fault just now. Senior Brother shouldn't have laughed so impudently. Forgive Senior Brother. Don't ignore Senior Brother. Yes, Senior Brother should keep it in his heart. Even if he choked to death, he couldn't laugh out loud. The corners of Liang Qingqing's mouth twitched, and she almost couldn't hold it in. Fuck, Senior Brother Sidu is definitely trying to be funny with a straight face. Next time, can you please remind me before you tell me a joke? I can't hold it in. Senior Brother should support your diagnosis. I support you unconditionally. Situ said with a straight face. Those people who are laughing are definitely uncultured. You don't know anything about medicine. What's so funny about such a serious matter? Yes. I was the one who diagnosed the Crown Princess. What are you guys laughing about? Hidden Flower hurriedly nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone glared at him. You brat, you laughed the loudest just now. Lord Jojo glanced at them and snorted. Suddenly, he waved his hand and took out a box from his inner world. Give out the pills. Get ready to leave tomorrow. All right. Everyone covered their mouths and laughed, nodding repeatedly. By the way, Jojo, when will you be able to recover? Woo, 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 woo. Before Wei Nanfeng could finish his giggling sentence, Lightning rushed up and covered his mouth and dragged him out of the tent. She simply touched his sore spot. Did she want to be scolded by Lord Jojo? Hey, Lightning, why the hell are you covering my mouth? Chapter 3079. Mr. Jojo waved his hand angrily. I'm going to Paradise Planet to take a nap. Don't disturb me if there's nothing important. Arbor didn't come out of Paradise Planet until sunset. She had a good sleep. When she woke up, she drew a lot of talismans to replenish the speed talismans and 5 spirit talismans that she had used to avoid the Omega Kitoku. Lady Qiao Qiao stretched her body and happily walked out of the tent with a few colorful divine fish in her hands. She called out, "Husband." Mo Lien didn't respond. The little girl scratched her head with the colorful divine fish in her hand. Qi Xianxian ran out of the tent and smiled at her. Ah, you're awake, my Qiao. Prince Mo and Prince Chun have been invited to the riverside by the saint. Oh, Arbor nodded. Then I'll grill the fish. Qi Xuanxuan's mouth twitched. She quickly said, No, the fatty is here. You don't have to do such a small thing. Fatty, little fatty. The little fatty had just come back from relieving himself. He tidied his clothes and said, What are you talking about? I'm coming. Fatty, we're eating fish tonight. Fix it. Leave it to me. When the little fatty saw Qi Xianxian winking at him, he immediately understood. He chuckled and took the colorful divine fish from Lady Qiao Qiao's hands. Hey, these fish are really nimble. Mr. Jojo looked at them suspiciously. Do you dislike my cooking? No. The little fatty and Qi Xianxian immediately waved their hand against their will and said with a smile, "We feel sorry for you. Don't work too hard, huh?" Mr. Jojo glanced at them and snorted. He turned and walked towards the riverside. "I'm going to check on my lotus." Qi Xianxian nodded and couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. "Xianxian, your expression just now was a little too exaggerated. Be careful not to expose yourself in front of Jojo." "I think my expression is normal." "Then why did she suspect you earlier?" Qi Xianxian whispered to him. "You're right. Jojo is too smart. If we don't let her cook in the future, we'll have to use more indirect methods. We can't be too direct, lest she get suspicious." "Yes." The fat boy nodded his head vigorously. "We can't let her feel that you dislike her cooking." Qi Xianxian glanced at him from the corner of her eyes and pouted. "You make it sound like you don't mind." Arbor could see many people gathered at the bank of the vast Dukhan River from afar. The voice of the Holy Sun's command entered her ears over and over again. Bring it up, put it down properly. Cough, cough, cough." A few students from the Hong Academy were carried up and placed on the ground. Turn it over, and spit out the water." The Holy Sun stood at the side and gestured as he spoke. Naturally, someone stepped forward and turned those people over. He patted their backs and asked them to spit out the water that was choking on their chests. Cough, cough, cough. A student from the Hong Academy instinctively wiped the water on his face and coughed a few times. "Little brother, are you all right?" Dofemian helped that person up and reached out to check his pulse. "Your body is fine, just a little weak. You'll be fine after resting for a day or two." Thank you, little brother." The student from the Hong Academy nodded gratefully at Dofemian and was helped to sit at the side. "You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.